It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that. We don't know if it was a commercial aircraft. We don't know if it was a private aircraft. We have no idea how many were on board or what the extent of the injuries are right now. We have, I understand, an eyewitness on the phone right now. Sir, what's your name?
Yeah, my name is Stuart.
Stuart, where are you right now?
I'm working at a restaurant in Soho.
All right, so tell us what you saw, if you would.
I was waiting at a table and I literally saw it seemed to be like a small plane. I just heard a couple noises. It looked like it bounced off the building, and then I just saw a huge ball of fire on top. And then the smoke seemed to simmer down, and it just, a lot of smoke was coming out, and that's pretty much the extent of what I saw.
A private aircraft?
I'm not sure if it was it just seemed like a smaller plane. I don't think it was anything commercial.
Could you tell us whether or not there was a prop or a jet?
I honestly don't know. It happened too quickly.
Characterize the scene for us down there right now, if you would.
Excuse me?
Can you tell us about the scene down there right now?
Right now, people are just on the street looking at the building. The building, there's just a lot of smoke. It's not too crazy down where I am.
How far away from the World Trade Center specifically are you?
I'm actually on Thompson Street North. I'm not too far.
It's 8:54 right now, Stuart. Can you tell me when this happened exactly?
I would have to say about 10 minutes ago.
About 10 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Is this normally an area that is heavily trafficked by aircraft, or is this an area that aircraft steer pretty clear of?
I really don't know that information.
Uh-huh. Is there much panic around there?
Just people on the street coming out looking. There was panic at first, but it seemed to slow down right now.
We're looking at a picture of a great deal of smoke coming out of the building. Can you please tell us, was there, after you heard this crash, was there smoke immediately?
No, there was a big ball of fire on the top of the building, and then as that simmered down, there just seemed to be a ton of smoke. And pretty much immediately.
I hear fire engines in the background. Has that been going since you saw this crash, or is that kind of late arrival?
It happened almost pretty much after we heard the crash.
Almost after you heard the crash.
It was pretty quick when we heard sirens and people acting on it.
Were you looking up as the plane approached the building, or did it only catch your attention after it crashed into the World Trade Center?
I heard a sort of a crashing sound, but I looked up quick enough to actually see something go into the building, but everything happened so fast I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at.
So there's no way you can know whether or not the plane seemed to be in trouble before it crashed into the building?
Oh, no, I couldn't tell.
It's hard for us to tell from the picture we're seeing just how far down from the top that plane crashed. Have you any better eyesight to it from your vantage point?
Not really. All I know is it definitely wasn't the top of the building, because that seems to be intact from what I saw. I really can't tell right now.
Can you tell us anything about how much debris came crashing to the ground, and whether or not anybody was hurt as a result?
I honestly don't know. I just saw a lot of what looked like crumbling glass, maybe just a lot of stuff falling down, but I can't tell you debris-wise. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the timing of this is important. It comes before 9 o'clock. Perhaps, and we say that in hopeful fashion, perhaps not everybody was at work, because if that building was in fact crowded with workers, we're looking at probably some casualties and injuries of considerable proportions. But right now, there's no way of telling that. Mr. Stewart, just one more time, and I know I'm exhausting what little information you have, but we have people joining us every moment. Take me through again where you were, when this happened, what you saw.
I was serving tables at a restaurant, and I just heard sort of like a boom sound. It almost sounded like an earthquake sound, and I looked up and I saw literally something it might have even bounced off a little bit of a building, and next thing I know, I saw a big ball of fire on the top of the building, and just lots of smoke and what looked like to be debris or glass falling down. And it happened really quick. It's really hard to...
Okay. Stuart, I thank you very much. I appreciate that, sir.
Okay, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're on the line with another eyewitness. Sir, this is Bryant Gumbel in New York.
Well, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. You're Wendell?
Yes, I am.
Wendell, can you give me your last name?
Klein.
Wendell Klein. Tell me where you are, if you would.
Well, right now I'm back in the hotel. I'm in the hotel offices here, the front office.
You're in the... Okay, where were you when
I was standing right in front of the hotel. I'm the doorman there. And...
The hotel. Which hotel?
Marriott World Trade Center.
Right across from the World Trade Center.
It's actually right in between them.
Right in between the World Trade Center.
Yes.
Okay, so you were standing outside, and tell us what you saw and what you heard.
Well, what I heard first, an explosion. And I just figured that it was a plane passing by. Then all of a sudden, stuff just started falling, like bricks and paper and everything. And so I just kind of like ran like inside to get away from the falling debris and glass and so forth. Then after like everything stopped, because it like was falling in the street and the cars were crashing into each other. Then when it kind of stopped, I heard a guy screaming. And when I looked over, there was this guy that was on fire. So I kind of like ran over, and I tried to like put the fire out on him. And he was like screaming, and I just told him to roll, and he said he can't. And then another guy came over with his bag and kind of like put the flames out on him. So right now, he's being taken care of. I just had everyone call the ambulance and stuff so it can help him out. He
caught fire as a result of the falling debris?
Yeah.
How much debris, can you give us an idea of how much came crashing to the ground?
It's just a lot. Bricks, a lot of bricks, a lot of glass. I'm like enough to like damage cars on the street, make cars swerve into each other, that kind of thing.
Any other people on the ground that you saw?
No, just
hurt?
Just him so far.
Tell me about the traffic down in that area, and I'm talking about human traffic.
Human traffic? Well,
at 8:55, which is about the time when this happened, 8:45, 8:55.
Right. On my side, where I'm standing, there's not a whole lot because it's basically right in front of the hotel, so you don't get too much, but you do get enough. You know, get some.
What about traffic in the building? I mean, you work basically between the two towers.
Yes.
Most people arriving for work before or after 9 a.m.?
Before. Basically, in my hotel, I have people who are just leaving and going to meetings. Outside my hotel, I just had people waiting for their cars to take them to their various destinations, that kind of thing.
I hear alarms going off down there. What's happening?
That's our hotel alarm, and basically, I guess that went off automatically. They've evacuated everyone in the hotel. They evacuated all employees.
They have evacuated the hotel?
Yes.
Immediately?
Yes.
Can you give me an idea of what the scene is like down there?
What the what is like?
What the scene is like down there at the World Trade Center?
Just people are like crying and panicking, like want to know what's going on. When I came inside, there were a lot of people who wanted to go out to see what was going on, but the security kind of like kept them at bay and kept them inside. Basically, right now, I just still have people going towards the bar area to trying to evacuate everyone out of here. That kind of thing.
Is this an area, Mr. Klein, that is normally trafficked by small planes, or is it an area that they're generally steer clear of?
You do get some. I do see some passing. Basically, those planes like I do see passing are like those, like the planes from Washington, D.C. area. Like, so there won't be like huge planes, but you know, big enough.
Are you hearing anything, Wendell, about what kind of a plane it was,
No.
or how many were on board?
No. Basically, all I got was my wife called me. She told me that it was a plane crash, and basically, I really don't know what's going on so far.
Do you know if it was a private aircraft or a commercial plane?
That I don't know.
You don't know?
No, sir.
You're not seeing any evidence of people being carried out of the building yet?
There's a woman that was just carried. I guess she fainted or something, but I don't see any physical injuries to her.
All right. Mr. Klein, thank you very much, sir.
All right. Good talking to you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
I understand Teresa Renault is with us right now. Ms. Renault, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
This is Bryant Gumbel. I'm down on 59th and 5th. Where are you?
I am in Chelsea, and we are at 8th and 16th. We are the tallest building in the area, and my window faces south. So it looks directly onto the World Trade Center. And I would say, you know, approximately 10 minutes ago, there was a major explosion from probably, it looks like about the 80th floor. It looks like it's affected probably 4 to 8 floors. Major flames are coming out of the, let's see, the north side and also the east side of the building, yes. And it was very loud explosion followed by flames, and it looks like the building is still on fire on the inside.
Which building are we talking about? The one that's westernmost?
Let's see. Yes, sir.
So it's coming out on the north side and the east side of the building of the westernmost tower.
That's correct.
You're over in Chelsea. Did you hear the explosion from
yes.
your position?
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact, we heard it, and because I was just like standing there pretty much looking out the window, I didn't see what caused it or if there was an impact.
So you have no idea right now?
Oh, there's another one. Another plane just hit. Right. Oh, my God. Another plane has just hit. It hit another building. Flew right into the middle of it. Explosion. My God, it's right in the middle of the building.
This one into the east tower?
Yes. Yes. Right in the middle of the building. And right now, yes, that was definitely looked like it was on purpose.
You saw a plane?
Yes, I just saw a plane go into the building.
Why do you say that was definitely on purpose?
Because it just flew straight into it. It didn't look like it was, and it didn't look like a commercial jet. It was a smaller plane. It was definitely a smaller plane.
Can you characterize the scene down there right now for us?
Now, on the...
Yeah, as you can look down to the street?
Yes.
From your vantage point?
On the second building, I think that the further one, the east side, there it looks like it's about, I would say 15 floors lower than the first building, and there's now flames coming out of that building as well. They're both completely on fire.
Now, I'm looking at what was the West Tower, and it looks like the fire on the north side of that tower is a little bit lower, but it looks like it's the same building. You're saying it was the other tower that absorbed this second impact?
That's what it looks like, exactly, from my perspective.
Don King, our director, if I could ask you to widen out and give us a shot of both towers, because we can't tell from this vantage point. Oh, okay, that is on the second tower.
Yes.
It is on the east tower. Teresa, hang on with us 1 second. We're gonna re-rack the tape of when we were talking to you to see if we can tell.
Okay.
We can't see anything. We can't see a second plane in the picture. There we see the explosion.
Yes.
There we see the explosion.
It was definitely a plane that hit it.
Here we are. We're trying to re-rack the tape right now. Teresa, do you have a vantage point to the ground from where you are?
Yes, I probably could go down.
No, I'm not asking you to go down. I'm asking if you can see it.
Oh, no, I cannot see the ground. As a matter of fact, there's too many buildings in the way. I can probably see just up about, I would say, up a third of, I can see the top 2/3 of the building.
Uh-huh. And how much of that top 2/3 do you see? Do you see flames? Do you see damage?
I would say middle of the second building and the top 4th of the first building.
Okay, Teresa, stay with us. We're going to look for that tape one more time.
Okay.
We're going to re-rack the tape here and see if we can't see a plane. Yeah, we see it right now. We see a plane right now coming in and impacting on what would appear to be the north side of that tower, of the westernmost tower, and hitting about 10 to 15 stories below. Teresa, let me ask you to hang on with us for a second while I talk with another gentleman who is an eyewitness, Richard Davis. Mr. Davis, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Bryant Gumbel.
Yes, sir.
I'm at 59th and 5th. Where are you?
I'm at 50th and 5th, but I'm facing south on the 39th floor.
You're facing south, so you have a clear vantage point.
Yes.
Talk to me about what you see, if you could.
The first plane looked like a 737. It flew right up the middle of Manhattan. It was clearly too low. I noticed it by the time it was passing the Empire State Building, and noticed that it was too low. It appeared to be absolutely nothing wrong with the plane, and then it very deliberately flew into the side of the World Trade Center.
Why do you say very deliberately?
Because the pilot aimed right for the building, and there was nothing wrong with the plane.
The plane did not appear to be in any trouble whatsoever?
None whatsoever.
And we're talking about a commercial aircraft, a 737?
It appeared to be a 737. I can't be absolutely certain.
No, obviously, I'm not asking you to be an aviation expert, but clearly what you saw, or what you say you saw, was not a small aircraft.
It was not a small aircraft. It was a small commercial aircraft, like a small Airbus or a 737 Boeing.
And that was the first plane?
Jet.
Did you see? Mr. Davis, we're looking at a tape replay of the second plane boring into the building. Hard for us to tell exactly how large an aircraft it is there, or whether or not that was intentional. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Believe me, it was intentional. We saw the second one come up the Hudson and veer into the second building.
Why do you say the second was intentional?
Because it was flown very deliberately. There appeared to be nothing wrong with the aircraft. It was flown very deliberately into the building.
Have they, you don't, obviously you're at 50th, you don't have any vantage point down there. What's everybody else talking about there who has the same vantage point? They see all the same thing you did?
Yes. Well, others did not see the first one, but there were several people in my office when the second one came in.
Yeah, we're looking at the second one boring in right now, and it does not seem to be wavering in any way or seem to be banking to avoid the tower in any way.
Let us say it could hardly be a coincidence. The two airplanes fly into the World Trade Center within minutes of each other.
Yeah.
On a clear day.
Yeah. It's a terrible scene right now.
Yes, the towers look terrible.
Wow. Wow. Miss Renault, are you still on with me? Teresa Renault?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Can you tell us if the scene has changed from your vantage point?
I would say from my vantage point right now, it's looks like there are very few flames coming out of the first tower. Still a lot of smoke. The second tower, we can still see flames coming out of the window, the north window, and a lot of smoke. A lot of smoke. The tops of the building are covered in smoke.
And from your vantage point, you can't see anything of what's happening on the ground?
No, I cannot. I hear a lot of sirens out on the street right now. One thing that you can see in the windows is all of the emergency system lights. That was one thing we could see. All of them were blinking off and on in the first tower when that happened. And I can't see them anymore. The second tower, I cannot see any emergency lights in the building blinking.
All right, I'm going to thank you both right there and pass along the word that we are getting from the FBI, that at this point the FBI is trying to confirm that this was an intentional act. At this point, it's pure speculation. Mr. Davis has told us of what he saw, and that it appeared the first plane, a large aircraft, bored into the westernmost of the two towers in intentional fashion. While we were speaking moments ago, a second plane, hard to identify the size of it, bored its way into the easternmost tower. So we have two crashes. Here's a different angle of the same plane. You see it off there on the left. Boring into there. But again, at this point, it is restricted airspace. It is a clear day, so the suspicions are high that these are intentional acts. But the FBI at this point is still trying to confirm that these are intentional acts. We have another eyewitness on the phone. Sir, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Gumbel.
How are you?
I'm fairly frightened, I have to say.
Give me your name, if you would.
My name is Frederick Schneider, sir.
Mr. Schneider, where are you?
I am on Liberty Street, which is the same street that the Trade Center's on. I'm on the south side, and the Trade Center's on the north side. My office is on the 24th floor, so I have a very clear view of exactly what happened this morning, and I've been here for about 2 hours, so I've been watching it unfold.
2 hours?
Yes, I got to my office at 7 this morning.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Tell me about the timetable of when things started to go terribly bad this morning.
Well, Mr. Gumbel, at about 8:50 this morning, there was an explosion. I heard it first, and then my building, which is 51 stories tall, shook and rocked. And then I saw a plume of flame shoot out of the Trade Center over the Hudson River, and then I saw the plane that had crashed into the Trade Center fall down, and then it disappeared behind a building that blocks my view. There was a tremendous amount of smoke, and then it started to rain huge pieces of paper, and the paper continued to come down. At that point, all the news media started to learn about it, and I turned on my radio, and while I was still sitting at my desk, I saw a second jet, fairly large plane, fly in over the south end of Manhattan and deliberately fly directly into the Trade Center before my eyes.
Why do you say deliberately fly into the Trade Center?
Because there was no doubt in my mind that both planes were using the Trade Center as a target. They weren't in distress. They weren't falling from the sky. They aimed for it. And they did a very good job. The Trade Center is torn open. There's a hole in the south side of the Trade Center, torn open from the impact of the plane, which fell into the street below.
Would that be the westernmost of the two towers?
The southernmost of the two towers.
Southernmost of the two towers.
Yes, yes. It's a big gaping hole in it. Flames and smoke have been pouring out since it happened about 5 minutes ago. I'm a little shaken because I saw the plane pass before my eyes. It was just about at my eye level. So.
How close to you?
A block and a half.
You say you saw the first plane fall down.
Yeah.
We're re-racking tape here, by the way, and I'm speaking to you, Mr. Schneider, but I'm showing tape right here of the second plane boring into the northernmost of the two towers. You say you saw the first plane fall down. What can you tell me about that plane?
Well, I didn't recognize it as a plane at first. It looked to me like a charred piece of metal, and I had thought that there was an explosion from within the Trade Center, so I thought what I was seeing was a piece of the Trade Center falling because the sheath of the Trade Center is metal. But since I've learned that the first explosion was caused by a plane crashing into the tower, I've assumed that what I saw was a piece of fuselage that was falling, and the plume of flame I saw shoot out would be consistent with jet fuel exploding.
So you really have no idea of how large a plane the first one was?
No, I didn't even know that was a plane. I learned that from the news media. But I definitely saw the second plane. I heard its sound, and I saw it streaming in from the south. I watched it crash into the Trade Center.
You said you're very afraid, and understandably so. They're not evacuating your building?
No. I'm going to leave on my own, but I haven't heard any decisions made to that effect.
Can you see the ground from your vantage point?
Oh, yes.
Talk to me about the scene on the ground, if you would.
Well, it's completely devoid of vehicles and people. The entire street is totally littered with paper and smoke, and several vehicles are on fire on Liberty Street in the parking lot where either fuel or pieces of the plane fell onto them after crashing into the Trade Center. There's a tremendous number of emergency vehicles here and continuing to arrive. I hear sirens from every side.
All right, Mr. Schneider, you've got a great vantage point. I'm going to ask you to hold on with me for a little while, if you would.
Okay, Mr. Gunn.
I know you're anxious to get out of the building. I'm not going to keep you forever, I promise.
Okay.
But let me ask you to sit tight for a second while I go to Washington, where Jim Stewart is standing by. He's got some official reaction. Jim, good morning. What are you hearing?
Good morning, Bryant. Well, as by happenstance, I was talking to FBI headquarters at the moment this explosion took place. They saw it occur as we saw it occur, the second explosion, rather, and their reaction was the same as everyone else. Number one, they noticed the clear weather there. Number two, they noticed what appeared to be, in their eyes, a deliberate attempt to crash the aircraft into the World Trade Center. Right now, they are trying to determine whether, in fact, it was deliberate. They have no information they can share at the moment, and I get the sense that they're in the same mode that we are, simply their mouth is agape trying to figure out what's going on.
Jim, let me interrupt for just 1 second. I'm looking at a report that the FBI is investigating reports of a plane hijacking. Did you have any news of that?
No, we don't.
No confirmation of that whatsoever?
We have no confirmation
Is anybody
of
even
that.
there discussing that?
No, the only discussion that's been going on here, Brian, is that the World Trade Center has obvious symbolic value. It's been a target before of terrorism, and frankly, it would not surprise the FBI or anyone in national security if it was a target again.
Sometimes the obvious leads you to a conclusion. We're looking at two crashes, 18 minutes apart, into an obvious target, a building that has never been hit with a plane before on a clear day. What do the intelligence people there say about that?
The intelligence community for some time has been warning in a steady drumbeat, Bryant, that Osama bin Laden has not been heard from now, frankly, since the beginning of the year, the USS Cole incident, rather, and they've been wondering when and if he will strike again, and they only believed it was a matter of time. And I believe that today that is going to be their first suspicion. But we have no confirmation of that. I must underline, there's no confirmation that this is a terrorist attack, number one, or number two, that it's Osama bin Laden involvement. But I can tell you right now, that is what they are thinking. That is the working premise, and we'll just have to see as the day unfolds what they discover.
Jim, as we sit here at 9:17, does the FBI have any choice but to sit and watch this on television?
I have never heard such a gasp of astonishment as I heard speaking to the FBI headquarters this morning when they saw what we saw, the explosion at the World Trade Center, the second explosion, and the smoke coming out of it. It reminded me and them of Oklahoma City. There's pure astonishment, I can tell you, at FBI headquarters this morning, and they are trying to find out the facts just as we are. Right now, they don't have any.
And as you noted, Jim, this has been a target before. Back on February 26, 93, a terrorist act at the World Trade Center killed 6 and injured more than 1,000 others. Do you know whether or not the FBI had received any warnings about attacks on domestic soil?
You know, frankly, no, and it's a question that we ask every day. I asked as recently as yesterday of the intelligence community what was the latest on terrorism threats in the United States, whether any intercept had been picked up, whether there was any current fear here that the next target would be within the United States. The answer came back no. They were still anticipating that the next strike against American interests would be overseas somewhere. Those are the most vulnerable targets. Today would clearly be some evidence that that's not the case at all. In clear weather, as you pointed out, what appears to be a deliberate attack into the heart of the financial district in New York City. You can't pick a more explicit message to send to America if you're a terrorist than what happened today. I stress again, though, this is pure speculation, but it is speculation right now by the people who are going to have to solve this crime, if in fact it is one, Brian.
That's a good point, Jim. At this point, it is pure speculation. The only thing we can tell you is we are looking at a very clear day in Manhattan on this Tuesday morning. We are looking at 2 towers of 110 stories in height that are on fire right now, that have absorbed 2 impacts with 18 minutes apart. Certainly, it's a little more than it would be an amazing coincidence, I think we should say.
Bryant,
go ahead.
We've just been told that, and this should not be come as a surprise, it's standard procedure by the FBI. Their rapid deployment team from the Washington field office, this is a group of people that they send to major disaster and terrorist incidents, such as the twin embassy bombings in Africa. They have now been dispatched to New York. I have reason to believe, too, that some members of the HRT, that's the hostage rescue team, have been put on alert. We don't have any word yet that they would be sent. And these are standard procedures that would take place anytime a major terrorist incident occurs. But this would be a group of approximately 60 experts, people who are very good at picking up the bits of debris that we've been talking about falling on the streets of New York and turning that into evidence should they discover that this, in fact, was a deliberate act.
Jim, and if you don't know the answer to this, I understand, so I apologize up front for asking you. But do you know whether or not there are any federal offices in the World Trade Center at the upper levels?
I don't know that there are. I do not believe that there are. I believe that the FBI and the ATF, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms people are all closer to Midtown, but I don't know the precise answer to that.
So, in fact, if the buildings were targeted intentionally, this would be more symbolic than a direct attack on the federal government or its employees. Jim, let me ask you to sit tight for a second. I understand, Mr. Davis, you're back with me on the line?
I am.
And Miss Renault, you're also back on the line?
Sure.
Mr. Davis, bring us up to speed. What are you seeing? Anything changed?
No, but the smoke is getting thicker, and I can see flames from some of the windows on the first tower. My view of the second tower is somewhat obstructed.
Where are you, 50th and 5th?
I'm 50th and 5th.
Yeah. The officials there are anxious to in any way evacuate your building? Or is this just a normal work day?
I've been told that Rockefeller Center is putting into effect security measures, but we have not been told to evacuate.
Okay. And Miss Renault, what are you seeing right now?
From the southeast tower, there are still flames coming out of the north side of the building. It may be just my perspective, but it looks like something could be sticking out of that. Also, it looks like on the northwest tower that there's possibly, the fire and everything could have moved up because it seems to be that there's smoke coming out higher floors on the building. You
say there appears to be something out. That would be the second aircraft?
Yes.
The one at the lower level?
Yes.
And what actually do you see?
There's an object that doesn't fit with the line of the building that seems to be protruding, and that's what's on fire.
We're getting a look at the building right now, and I must say the smoke seems to be obscuring our view enough so that we can't identify it. We're re-racking the tape right now. You see encircled there off on the right-hand side of your screen, this is the second plane. Obviously, the first plane has already collided with the top of the southernmost building, and now here comes the second plane. And you see making no moves to evade the second tower, and then crashing into the second one. Ms. Renault, let me ask you to sit tight. Mr. Davis, you too, for a second. I want to go to Washington, where White House correspondent Bill Plant is standing by. Bill, what are you hearing on your end?
Brian, we're hearing that the president will have a statement to make shortly. He is in Florida this morning. He was supposed to do an educational event with children to push his education bill. We understand that that event has been canceled. There was a senior staff meeting here this morning. Nobody seems quite to know exactly what's going on. The National Security Council said earlier that it had heard nothing unusual. This was after the first airplane impact. We will hear from the president, we think, very shortly, to hear what he has to say and see what, if anything, they know about this, which appears to be so deliberate.
Bill, I asked Jim this earlier, and again, I apologize if you're not in a position to shed any more light on it, but do you know whether or not officials there at the White House had been forewarned that there was an imminent attack or there was a heightened sense of alert? We're aware there had been for some time a heightened sense of alert throughout the Mideast, but I'm talking about domestically.
Well, we do know that there has been a heightened sense of alert. We do know that there have been a number of threats. There are always threats received. They have tended to take them recently a bit more seriously. But it does not appear, and I hesitate to make this for certain, but it does not appear that they had any advance warning that anything was going to happen today.
Again, this is all speculative, Bill, but are officials there working on the assumption that two planes crashing in the Twin Towers 18 minutes apart on a clear day, not an accident?
Hard to believe that they would think otherwise, but at the moment they seem just as mystified as we are. And as I said before, we do expect a statement from the president, who is down in Florida, sometime within the next few minutes.
All right, Bill, let me go back to Teresa Renault. Ms. Renault, I'm sorry I'd cut you off earlier, and I may again, by the way, if the president is ready to speak, but give us what you see from your vantage point again, if you would.
From the southeast building.
You're in Chelsea, correct?
Yes, I am. On the 14th floor, we have a 360-degree view. It's completely clear, straight shot. We have on the southeast building on the north side, looks like the north corner, about the middle of the building. It is still very much in flames and smoke rising from that. I can't see as many flames coming out of the northwest building. It looks like, though, that the north side of the building and the west side of the northwest building have been opened up and still very much covered in smoke in the tops of the buildings.
And that the northwest side would be the building that absorbed the first impact,
That's
the higher of the two.
That's correct.
From our vantage point, it appears that the higher hole is a larger hole. Is that what you see?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I don't know if that's just a difference in perspective from where I am, because that is the closer building
Certainly
to me.
It's staggered. You're correct.
Yes.
But we had heard an earlier report, unconfirmed, that the first plane appeared to be a 737. The plane we saw, absent any perspective, seemed to be a smaller plane.
I would say the explosion upon impact was much larger on the first hit than the second.
You heard both?
Yes, I saw the impact on the second building. I saw the explosion come from the building on the first one. Mm-hmm.
You're at Chelsea and 14th.
Yes. It's like a 16th and 8th Avenue.
Yeah, I'm sorry, on the 14th floor. I apologize.
Yeah,
not on 14th. You're a considerable ways away. Any effort there to evacuate your building?
Not at this point. No.
Mr. Davis, tell us the mood where you are. We were talking to a gentleman earlier who was in a high-rise closer to the World Trade Center, and he was genuinely afraid, and understandably so.
Well, it is shocking. Very shocking to have witnessed. Perhaps we can be somewhat more sympathetic to what Israel is suffering at the moment.
But they have not moved people out of your building?
No.
You said you're at Rockefeller Center, that security actions have been put into place. What do those entail?
I really do not know, but we have not been told to evacuate.
All right. Jim Stewart, back in Washington, you still with us? Oh, Bill, you're still with us, right?
I am, Brian.
What word are you hearing on when the president's going to come forward?
We were just told that the president will have something to say down in Florida any minute. He is in Florida. We believe that his education event, which was scheduled for this morning, has been canceled. But the White House is saying that the president will have something to say. Then he'll leave Florida and come right back to Washington, Brian.
Bill, had his people, Condi Rice, Colin Powell, his security people, his foreign affairs people, ever discussed this kind of a scenario?
I don't know for certain, but I would be very surprised if they had not talked about it. This kind of what-if disaster planning is a staple in Washington, and particularly at senior levels. And I think that these sorts of things are gamed, examined, and talked about, and everyone hopes they will never happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this case, it would seem to have gone against hopes. Again, let's bring everyone up to speed. As best we can tell, wow, we just had another view of the second plane going in. As best we can tell, at 8:45 this morning, an aircraft plowed into the uppermost levels of one of the Twin Towers. An eyewitness has defined that plane, has told us that plane was a 737, but that is unconfirmed. And then moments later, 18 minutes later, a second aircraft, the one you saw just there, plowed into the other Twin Tower at a lower level. That plane, we have no idea of its size. We have no idea if these were intentional acts. We have no idea if these are private planes or commercial aircraft. We have an unconfirmed report from the Associated Press that the FBI was investigating reports of a plane hijacking shortly before the crash into the World Trade Center. Let's go to Florida. President Bush has a statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a difficult moment for America. I unfortunately will be going back to Washington after my remarks. Secretary of Rod Page and Lieutenant Governor will take the podium and discuss education. I do want to thank the folks here at Booker Elementary School for their hospitality. Today we've had a national tragedy. Two airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
We've been watching President Bush, who was down in Florida for what was supposed to be an educational event. Instead, he is racing back to Washington as we speak. The president making a very brief statement in Sarasota, calling it an apparent terrorist attack on our nation. Again, that is unconfirmed, and promising the full resources of the federal government to not only help the victims, but also to investigate. And before asking people to pray with him, the president's saying that this act will not stand. As he was speaking, we got a report from Reuters that a plane was hijacked from Boston. A plane out of Boston was hijacked. But again, that is unconfirmed. We had a report earlier from the Associated Press that there had been a hijacking. Now Reuters is reporting that a plane out of Boston was hijacked. An American Airlines aircraft, we understand, was the plane that was hijacked. This would be in keeping with an earlier eyewitness report that the first plane that plowed into the World Trade Center was a 737. Former FBI agent James Kallstrom covered the World Trade Center bombing back in 1993. He is with us on the line right now. Jim, good morning.
Good morning.
You've been watching this. Talk to me.
I shouldn't say good morning. It's not a good morning.
No, I apologize. Go ahead.
I don't really know much about it, but it sure looks to me like a deliberate act of terrorism. And I mourn the loss of the lives that I'm sure are going to follow this.
I've got a lot of questions for you, James. Let me kind of take you through them if I could. Because you investigated and worked on the original terrorist incident, I should say the terrorist incident back in 1993, can you tell me if these buildings have any special significance by virtue of who's working in them?
Well, I don't think it's so much who's working them. I think the towers symbolize largely. There's many other symbols also, but the World Trade Center is a symbol. That was one of the original reasons that Ramzi Youssef and the rest of that gang wanted to do the World Trade Center as a symbol of America. So, sure, there's other symbols, but I think this is probably the tallest one on the East Coast.
Again, all of this is unconfirmed. We heard the president call it an apparent terrorist attack. At this moment, have you any doubt that's exactly what it is?
No, I have no doubt of that. I would call it an apparent attack. I think there's probably an infinitesimal chance it isn't, but it certainly doesn't appear that it could be. Commercial airliners, number one, are not going to direct themselves into a square hit on the World Trade Center. If there's some sort of a mayday or something wrong with the plane, they're going to try to ditch it elsewhere. They're not going to do that. And if the reports of a second plane hitting the building are true, then I think that probably caps off exactly what this is. It's a cowardly act of terrorism.
How restricted is the airspace around the World Trade Center?
I'm not an FAA person, but
no,
you cannot fly through that airspace unless you're a helicopter, or unless you're anything really, without being guided by air traffic control. It's highly restrictive.
So the possibility that two planes on a clear day just happened to wander into these buildings.
I think that's beyond the pale.
Yeah, that's not a possibility. Again, you worked on evacuating these buildings. You saw what happened when they were evacuated. How many people are we talking about from what you can see on those upper levels?
Do we know exactly what time this first event happened?
We're guessing. We're putting it at about 8:45, Mr. Kallstrom.
Yeah,
again, that's only by eyewitnesses.
Yeah, Brian, I think we're talking literally hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people affected by this. I mean, the smoke alone in the other floors, and the when you compare the bombing in the basement of that building, which for a number of hours we weren't sure it was a bomb. We thought maybe it was some sort of a transformer blowing up, to what's reported at least as a 737 type size airplane, something that size, hitting the first tower, and then some smaller plane hitting the second. I mean, this is geometrically more catastrophic.
Difficult building to extraordinary, obviously, because of the height of the buildings. But the plans in place for evacuation, are they, from your experience, state of the art?
I think they are. I think the whole security of that building, both from a physical security standpoint and from an evacuation standpoint, was certainly reinvented and looked after after that tragedy that happened back in the early 90s. And they're probably as good as they can be. But having said that, you're talking about one of the tallest structures, or two of the tallest structures in the United States. And whether or not the elevators are working, they're probably not. They're not used in case of fire. You've got a massive evacuation problem on your hands. Would it
be highly unusual, Mr. Kallstrom, for these attacks, if that's what they were, to have taken place without some degree of advance warning?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, the FBI and law enforcement, the people that come to work every day and suffer through immense criticism when little things go wrong, these are the days that everyone hopes that they have a very formidable, highly motivated FBI and law enforcement team. And I suspect we do. And these are the things that they try to not have happen. These are the things they try to have the intelligence to avoid happening. International terrorism, if that is what this is, and I don't know what it is very hard to penetrate because it's not very, it doesn't have a hierarchy of authority, and it's cellular, and it's a lot of different people motivated for religious type reasons, hatred reasons, and you can necessarily not know a lot about what's going on in an agency if you're in at some level because it's so segmented.
Again, I'm getting a report now that it was a United Airlines plane that plowed into the building. We don't know whether that negates the American Airlines reported hijacking or whether or not that was a second plane. So at this point, we're getting different reports. Go ahead, Mr. Kelso.
Yeah, I mean, you telling me that, Brian, if that is a commercial airline, a United or American or whatever it is, you know, that, I mean, my initial thought there is that this plane was somehow commandeered by somebody, hijacked, taken over, and flown into the building. I don't know that for a fact, but that's certainly what it looks like.
Yeah, as I'm looking at the second tape right here, and I don't know if you're watching on the line with us, that is definitely a commercial-sized aircraft.
Yeah.
Now that we've blown it up.
Yeah.
In size.
You know, it's beyond belief, but it's not beyond belief. I mean, we've seen this hatred find its way into the embassy bombings in Africa. We've seen this hatred at the USS Cole. We've seen it at the World Trade Center in '93. We've seen it around the world in acts that take place almost every day. And, you know, for this to then transform itself into this size of an incredible tragedy, to me, although I certainly would never expect it, never ever want it to happen, is not that unbelievable.
Yeah, James Kallstrom, let me ask you to sit tight for a second, if you would. Brian Jenkins, a terrorism expert who's been with us quite a few times, as I understand, on the line. Brian, you there?
Yes, I am.
Talk to me.
Well, obviously, you know, we don't know the details of what happened yet. We should have details coming out fairly quickly, though, as to the identity of this aircraft. We're talking about crowded airspace in New York with major airports in the area, both in the immediate area of New York and in the surrounding cities. There should be information fairly quickly that will identify these particular aircraft. And indeed, we should be able to confirm fairly quickly as to the identity of the jet, and perhaps even some last second broadcast that may indicate what happened.
Mr. Jenkins, I'm going to interrupt for just one second because we're getting word that they are evacuating the White House down in Washington right now.
Well, this is not surprising. I mean, first of all, an action of this magnitude is something that does suggest a great deal of planning and preparation. In some of these recent actions, we have seen multiple coordinated operations.
But who's capable of this kind of planning and preparation?
There are a number of terrorist organizations around the world that would be capable of this, based primarily in the Middle East. But it's too early, really, to speculate as to the identity. Certainly.
But there any doubt in your mind that what we're looking at here is the aftermath of a coordinated terrorist incident?
You know, to explain. In any as happenstance.
Hold it, Mr. Jenkins. We're looking. There are two jets right now approaching the World Trade Center. Oh. We're watching. Hold on. I'm sorry. No, the one aircraft is cleared. We can't tell whether it was a plane or a chopper from our vantage point. I apologize, Mr. Jenkins.
No, that's okay.
We're more than a bit gun shy. We're seeing aircraft off to the right side of our picture. We're going to assume at this point that is a copter or is aircraft to get a better vantage point. But having seen one go plow in for a second time, we're a little bit wary. Go ahead. I apologize.
We are breaking into the special live coverage of what's happening at the World Trade Center in New York to tell you about something going on right here at the Pentagon. You were looking at both pictures. The smoke that you see on the left-hand side of your screen is right here in the Washington area at the Pentagon.
Looks like the helipad area of the Pentagon over towards 395. There were reports of an explosion. People said the building shook. They felt the building shake, and they're evacuating that building. We're also getting word that the White House may be under an evacuation order right now. Again, we don't know exactly what happened here at the Pentagon, but you can see the result of whatever it was near the area of the heliport is lots of billowing smoke, dark smoke, and workers reported hearing something and then feeling the area rumble. What do you hear, Tom? There is construction work going on there.
We don't know what is the cause of this smoke, but we are keeping you updated on this story. And, of course, the breaking story in New York where one of two planes we're now hearing that crashed into the World Trade Center was hijacked after takeoff from Boston.
On the left.
On the left is the Pentagon. And on the right is the World Trade Center, where reports now from AP say that one of the two planes that crashed into the World Trade Center towers was hijacked after takeoff.
President Bush has called the World Trade Center explosions apparent terrorist attacks. Again, on the left of your screen.
Now we're hearing that the Associated Press is quoting witnesses as saying it was an aircraft that crashed into the Pentagon. And that is what we're looking at right now from Arlington, Virginia. Our Gannett cam looking at this huge billowing dark smoke. A plane.
So we got two planes that plowed into the World Trade Center up in New York. Now we've got a plane that plowed into the Pentagon here in Arlington. Stay with us. We're going to get you more information just as soon as we can. Apparently, the Pentagon being evacuated.
There are reports that the White House may be under an evacuation order as well. The West Wing of the White House has been evacuated, according to AP, amid terrorist threats. That's the AP News alert just moved across the wires.
The Pentagon, this is a live shot from the Gannett camera atop the Gannett building in Roslyn of the Pentagon. You can't see the Pentagon for all the smoke.
And again, just word that the West Wing of the White House has been evacuated amid terrorist threats. And of course, the other story, the picture you see on the right is the World Trade Center, still spewing smoke from the two planes that crashed into the towers.
We have no word yet of casualties either here at the Pentagon or in New York.
But we did have some eyewitness reports of people on the ground from the spray of jet fuel on fire on the ground. It's not going to be good.
Dave Staddard is on the phone with us now. Dave, where are you? Dave, can you hear me? All right,
Lauren, are you there? Lauren, you're Lauren Ashburn from USA Today. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Andrea.
Lauren, we understand you witnessed what happened at the Pentagon?
Yes, I did.
What did you see?
We're standing in the USA Today towers at 1000 Wilson Boulevard, and as we were getting ready to record, we watched what appeared to be a huge explosion over top of the Pentagon. At that point, we were immediately told to evacuate the USA Today towers. As many people know, they're very tall towers that overlook Washington tall silver towers. And the picture that you're seeing right now is actually taken from a camera that is on top of the USA Today building.
We're getting a report, Lauren. See if you can confirm this. An Associated Press reporter saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the Pentagon. Could you tell what type of aircraft?
We could not tell what type of aircraft it was. The only thing we could see was a huge cloud of smoke and what looked like some flames at the onset of that. We couldn't see, as you can, I don't know if you can hear right now, but emergency trucks, I've seen about 20, 25 of them screaming down Route 110 here in front of the USA Today headquarters.
All right, Lauren, stay on the phone with us, can you?
Lauren, where are you now?
I am on the 18th floor of Tower 1 of USA Today headquarters building, looking out onto the Potomac River.
God,
and you said they've evacuated from upper floors, or they're trying to evacuate everybody in the USA Today buildings?
At this point, they are evacuating everybody in the USA Today building in both towers, both Gannett Broadcasting and USA Today.
The West Wing of the White House and the Capitol building have both been evacuated. Again, repeating, the West Wing of the White House and the U.S. Capitol building have both been evacuated. This following 3 terrorist attacks, 2 on the World Trade Center up in New York, and the terrorist attack you're looking at here at the Pentagon. Apparently, according to Associated Press, an AP reporter saw the plane. He says it was a large airliner which plowed into the Pentagon.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much.
Yes, well,
and you've got anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks, Lauren. We'll get back to you safely from the ground.
I saw the tail of a large airliner. It plowed into the Pentagon. That's according to Associated Press radio reporter. There's billowing black smoke, which you can obviously see. This is incredible.
The West Wing, again, of the White House and the U.S. Capitol building have both been evacuated amid concerns over terrorist threats. The White House threatened with terrorist attacks is the reason for the evacuation. We had not heard earlier. People were asking FBI officials whether there had been any word, any hints, any leaks of possible terrorist action, and no one was confirming anything. Again, this just moving. One of the 2 planes that crashed into the World Trade Center in New York, which is the picture you're looking at now, was hijacked after takeoff from Boston, a U.S. official said, citing a transmission from that plane.
And I believe, Andrea, this AP alert, White House threatened with terrorist attack, I think that's something that was probably just released, that there was a direct threat on the White House. Again, the West Wing has been evacuated. The U.S. Capitol building has been evacuated.
Joining us by phone now is Don Chauncey. Don, are you there?
Yes, I am.
You witnessed what happened at the Pentagon. What did you see?
From my office, I was able to see a white jet, like a Gulfstream type commuter jet, I guess, just came at a high rate of speed. I can see National Airport's tower from our office.
Right.
And it just increased its speed as it got closer to the Pentagon, and then I just saw the big yellow ball of fire.
Don, exactly where is your office? From where are you watching this?
Our office is right at St. Barnabas Road in the Beltway, so I overlook the Beltway from my office.
Could you tell, Don, did the plane come out of National?
No.
No, it did not.
No, absolutely not. There was it appeared to be a U.S. Air commuter jet that went over top of our building, which is a normal flight pattern, I guess, for the commuters.
Yeah.
And this looked like it was coming from, I'm guessing, down Columbia Pike in Arlington, down that way, and then just picked up a high rate of speed. I mean, from my desk right now, I can see the Pentagon, basically where the metro station is and the buses. I can see that to the right, but I can't see the south parking area.
Right.
Don, what's the reaction of others in your office? I mean, watching the World Trade Center and then seeing this right literally in your own backyard.
Well, myself and another coworker that sits beside us, both of us were actually on the phone looking out the window when it happened, and both of us dropped the phone and we picked it back up and said, we have to go. It looked like there was a plane crash either at the airport or at the Pentagon.
Don, hold on with us for a second. We're just getting this bulletin. The Federal Aviation Administration has shut down all aircraft takeoffs nationwide. All aircraft takeoffs nationwide have been halted by the FAA.
We have Dawn on the phone now, who was another witness to what happened at the Pentagon. Dawn, can you hear us? Dawn?
Hello?
Yes, Dawn. This is Andrea in the newsroom with Mike Buchanan. What did you see?
I saw it was an American Airlines 757, and it came in and hit the heliport, came down Columbia Pike and hit the heliport next to the Pentagon. I live in an apartment building on that side of the Pentagon, and it just crashed right into it. I don't know if it damaged the side of the Pentagon, but the Pentagon doesn't look that badly damaged, but I know it hit at least the heliport on the side of the Pentagon.
You said it was a 757. How could you tell? How could you see that?
Yes, I could see it. And my roommate is an airplane person, and he saw it too. I mean, we saw the whole thing.
Okay.
Did it didn't come out of National? It came in from the west?
It came right down Columbia Pike. Came right down Columbia Pike. Low and with throttles on.
With the full throttle?
Yeah. He actually added power right by the Sheridan.
And that's what we heard from Don as well. Added power and went straight for the Pentagon. So this was no accident.
No.
It was deliberate.
This was aimed right at it. But unfortunately, I think it hit the heliport and didn't look like it damaged too much of the Pentagon.
All right, Don, thank you very much for calling us with that.
Andrea, hey, listen, thank you very, very much. We have a man named Sean on the line who, I'm sorry, sir, your name, please?
Sean Lansdale.
What'd you see, Sean?
I was sitting in my bedroom back at home, and
where's that, sir?
It's right in Arlington. I'm like 4 minutes away from the Pentagon.
Right.
And I was sitting in my living room, and my building started shaking, and I knew that don't no plane supposed to make my building shake. Well, when I turned around and looked up, I see this plane, and I agree with the young lady that was just speaking. It was like a 757.
Sean, we're going to stop you because Dave Statter is now on the scene. We've heard from others that it's a 757. Dave, are you there?
I'm here, the west side of the Pentagon, the helicopter port off of Washington Boulevard. Plane into the side of the building. There's a bit of a hole on that side of the building. Arlington Fire and Rescue, military fire on the scene putting foam on it. The plane did not seem to go into the building like the World Trade Center attacks. It seemed more to glance the side of it and certainly do some damage to the left side of the building. But it's right if anybody's coming up Washington Boulevard, which is still open amazingly, northbound, it's right where the helipad is. Believe this when I tell you, everybody here is scanning the skies looking for a possible attack. Every fire and rescue crew has been told to beware of that. Every police officer has been told to beware of that. We cannot tell you at the moment, and as far as casualties, any injuries at the moment.
Dave, so it hit more of the helipad than it did the building?
It definitely hit the building. Something hit the building, certainly, but it did not seem to be a gaping hole like we saw at the World Trade Center. I can't even tell you what size plane it is because it's pretty much consumed. Should be getting a live picture from us shortly. We're trying to call it in now. We do have a microwave truck here, so we should be able to give you some live pictures, and you can look for yourself. Right now, looks like National Airport Fire Department is that, or is I can't tell yet. It's the Metropolitan Airport Fire Department is putting foam on this side of the Pentagon to try to put out the fire. As of a few minutes ago, there was still a great amount of fire. The fire has lessened somewhat.
All right.
Get a picture up.
All right, Dave, we'll let you go for just a second. I want to tell you the White House has been evacuated. The entire White House.
Not just the West Wing. And again, we want to let you know that the Federal Aviation has shut down all airplane traffic nationwide. Nothing coming in, nothing leaving. All traffic, air traffic nationwide has been shut down by the Federal Aviation Administration in reaction to what definitely appears to be a terrorist attack on the United States. First there at the World Trade Center in New York, and now, as you heard from Dave Satter, where the west side of the Pentagon and an area near the heliport was hit by a plane.
Again, the White House has been evacuated after the Secret Service received a credible threat of a terrorist act against the presidential mansion and residence. Again, the AP reporting the Secret Service has received a credible threat of a terrorist threat against the presidential mansion and residence.
We also have learned that Blair Mansion, which is the residence of heads of state who come in as guests to the United States, has also been evacuated. Again, specifically BWI, but this covers every airport in the United States. They've been shut down. All airplane traffic nationwide. Of course, in our area, that means BWI, National, Dulles, all closed down, nothing coming in, nothing going out. This is a horrible sight and a scary, very frightening day.
Again, what you're looking at now is the Pentagon. Some witnesses say it appeared to be an American Airlines 757, which plowed into the helipad part of the Pentagon, the 395 side of the Pentagon. Hold on just 1 minute.
All right, we just want to update you in case you have not heard, just turning on and don't know what you're looking at. This is not a made-for-TV movie. This is the real thing. On the left, black billowing smoke from the Pentagon. On the right, billowing smoke from the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York. Shortly after 8:44 this morning in New York, a small, some say a twin-engine plane crashed into the World Trade Center tower on the right of your screen. About 18 minutes later, an airliner, some say hijacked a 757 that you're looking at right now. This is a tape of that earlier this morning. That building and that plane going deliberately heading straight into the tower on the left of your screen.
President Bush ordered a full-scale investigation, quoting the president to hunt down the folks who committed this act.
Shortly after the president made that statement, we were getting word that there had been a plane heading towards the Pentagon going down, and that's what you see on the left-hand side of your screen, the picture in the box on the left-hand side. Dave Statter said you could see it. Some of the flames were beginning to diminish, but what observers noted, and those, they were in the airline industry, so we kind of take what they're saying at the word 757 American Airlines. They could see the plane, they could see the markings, crashed into the west side of the Pentagon near the heliport.
This is a live picture we're just getting here. This is the firefighters battling the blaze at the Pentagon. Look.
So you can see the damage.
This is just going to be raw tape that Dave Statter and his crew are
just feeding into us.
You can see this apparent terrorist attack. A jet slammed into the Pentagon about 15-20 minutes ago, the helipad side on 395. We have no word yet on casualties. The Pentagon has been evacuated, as has the White House and the U.S. Capitol building at Blair Mansion.
Before this happened at the Pentagon, President Bush went on the air to talk about the response, the U.S. response in light of the World Trade Center. But again, this is what happened right after he said we were going to hunt down the folks responsible for the apparent terrorist attack in New York City. And shortly after that, this is what happened at the Pentagon in Arlington. We're just getting across the wires in Los Angeles. Police departments there are on tactical alert, but there have been no threats in Los Angeles that police are aware of. But as you can imagine, major American cities are on heightened alert. And Los Angeles is saying we are in citywide tactical alert and have mobilized their anti-terrorist division. Let's go back to Dave Statter with more from the site of the Pentagon. Dave.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
All right, I'm here with Michael Kelly, who was a witness to this attack at the Pentagon. I'm going to let him describe what he saw here, I guess about 20 minutes ago with me, Michael Kelly. First of all, let me just first describe the scene. This is the west side of the Pentagon, the heliport side off of Washington Boulevard. Were you driving or what?
Yes, I was in the traffic on the 14th Street Bridge, right at the Pentagon, tied up going into town, and I heard this plane come over my head. It was really low.
What size plane?
It sounded like a small plane, but it was very, very low. And the next thing I know, there was this tremendous explosion as it hit the Pentagon. I looked over, and the smoke started coming up. Pieces of the plane and pieces of the Pentagon were falling onto the 14th Street, onto the Shirley Highway. Very scary. So I decided not to go across the 14th Street Bridge. I came around and I wound up here, stopped in the traffic right at the Pentagon. I was trying to get back over to Memorial Bridge, but no
Had you
luck.
known about the World Trade Center
Oh,
attack?
yeah, I was listening to WTOP radio the whole time, and then this thing came right over my head, and it plowed. It was clearly a similar situation to what happened in New York.
There are injured people here. We can't tell you how many. We've certainly seen Arlington fire and rescue crews, the paramedics working on somebody in front of us. We have not heard the number of people injured. This attack, as you can see, did not seem to really penetrate the building a great distance, even though there is a great amount of fire on this side of the Pentagon, which I believe is, as you can compare it to the World Trade Center, I think the Pentagon has always been called the largest office building in the world, so there certainly is a comparison there, besides its obviously strategic implications. Arlington Fire here called in extra equipment. They've called in the National Airport Foam Unit, which
Dave,
yes, go ahead.
Dave, Dave,
yes.
We just want to break in because we want to go back to New York, where Dan Rather is anchoring our coverage, where one of the towers at the World Trade Center has collapsed. Let's go back to CBS.
There are no confirmed fatalities. Now, in Washington, the Pentagon has had a fire and explosions, much speculation of what would have caused the fires and explosions at the Pentagon in Washington, but very few facts. David Martin, our Pentagon correspondent, says that he has seen, I believe it said 5 injured people at the Pentagon. One eyewitness, and only one so far, is quoted as saying he thinks, I put that in quotation marks, he thinks a plane crashed into the Pentagon. But there'll be rumors all day, and we're going to try to separate the rumors from the facts. Now, you're looking at a live picture of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, in flames, with much smoke. In the last few minutes, there have been 2 reports, but not yet officially confirmed, that a portion of at least one of the towers has collapsed. But I caution that that's an unconfirmed report, although it comes from 2 sources, and it's unclear whether that collapse is about the interior of the building or some portion of the exterior of the building. I want to emphasize again, not to be redundant, but this is a day in which rumors are going to spread like mildew in damp basements. And there'll be reports, some of them will be officially confirmed, some not. That's the environment in which we're dealing. Now, President Bush was in Florida this morning. He called this an apparent act of terrorism and rushed back to Washington. The president is in the air going back to Washington at the moment. Now, in Washington, the reports spread that a plane also crashed at the Pentagon. See, as David Martin says, there are at least several injuries. Several is the word he used. The FAA has banned all aircraft takeoffs nationwide. Here in New York, the city is on a full terrorist alert. Bridges and tunnels are closed. You recall the World Trade Center was the target of a terrorist bombing in 1993. Now, again, it's important to point out that with television, what we can show you is what is at the end of the television camera. The whole city is not in smoke and flames, not by a long shot. The city is on a terrorist alert. Entry into the city has been closed off. Tunnels and bridges are closed off as a precautionary measure. But, you know, in many, many areas of New York City, life goes on this morning, and the same is true in Washington, D.C. So just keep in mind that when you see this picture constantly, it's of one section of New York City, and we go to Washington for the picture there, the Pentagon, the same thing. These pictures...
All right, this is Mike Buchanan along with Andrea Roan. We're here in Washington. We're going to keep you updated on this situation. We've also got an explosion. What you got, Chris?
We've got Chris.
The Beltway at 395 at the Pentagon has been shut down.
The Beltway at 395 near the Pentagon has been shut down, obviously because of what you're seeing right here on the screen. A plane hitting the west side of the building, a gaping hole there, and near the heliport. This after 2 planes struck the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. Reports of a portion of the second tower that was hit at the World Trade Center appears to have collapsed. What you are looking at right now, though, is here, the Pentagon. Let's recap, Mike.
All right, what are we going to figure? Hold on, here's a...
These are raw footage coming back. That's our reporter there on the scene who will be giving us stories in just a few minutes, but people who have been evacuated from the Pentagon building after that building, the west side of the building, was struck by a plane not long after the twin attacks in New York City on the World Trade Center. An Associated Press reporter says he saw the tail end of a large airliner plunge into the Pentagon building. What we know, New York City is on a terrorist alert, and here in Washington, the White House, all of the White House, the old Executive Office building, Blair Mansion, other major government institutions, including Treasury and the State Department, have also been evacuated amid credible terrorist threats.
All right, Dave, go ahead, take it.
Thank you. We've got some eyewitnesses as you... Mike, why don't you stay on, show the pictures over here, and I'll talk to the eyewitnesses. You can look at what's going on, the firefighting efforts. We had a couple people who were in the Pentagon at the time. Tell me what happened.
We were sitting at our desks having a meeting, and there was a large shutter, or there was a shutter of the building, and the sound of a large thud.
Right, you could hear the impact, and there was a large concussion, like an explosion would do. The air would be a concussion.
But we didn't know there was an explosion. It was clear. We looked at each other and knew that something catastrophic had happened, but we had no idea what it was. People began evacuating immediately and went outside. And it wasn't until we were outside we realized what had happened.
How far away from you in the building were you when it happened?
Well, if you divide the building into fifths, 5 pie slices, which is the way the Pentagon renovation is scheduled. This is in the first wedge, the new wedge that just was finished, and we were in the next one over.
Did you see any injured other than the ones who were out here that we saw?
I didn't see any injuries.
Did you see what size of plane it was when you got outside?
No, but walking up here now along the road, there are pieces of aircraft spread all the way up the road, at least a third of a mile from the impact site.
What goes on? Can you tell us what would be in those offices, generally speaking? I know you can't go into great detail.
Well, we're looking at the E-ring of the Pentagon, and that's where the more senior officials are. That area, I believe, is where the Army Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations and the Army Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel's offices are.
We're looking here also, I believe, I don't have a monitor, but I believe you're looking at one of the injured being taken away by Arlington Fire and Rescue. They've been on the scene since a few minutes after this happened. And I mentioned before, but the firefighters and police officers on the scene here have all been warned, keep a close look at the skies, watching for a possible second attack as what happened in New York. Mike and Andrea?
All right, we're going to go to Rick Armstrong. He's one of our photojournalists. He's down on the mall. Rick?
Hi, Buck.
What you got?
Not a whole lot other than the fact that the city is shut down. I'm at the base of the Washington Monument. A park police officer a few minutes ago told me they've shut down all the monuments. They're evacuating all the buildings, including the White House. I can look across the river at the Pentagon, and it's an incredible smoke plume.
Bet you everybody.
Emergency vehicles going in every direction. Look like Secret Service vehicles, fire vehicles, police vehicles. 25 years here, I've never seen anything like this.
What's the reaction of the people there, mostly tourists, I'm sure, and some working in the area?
To be honest with you, I've talked to a lot of tourists, and they're just, what do you expect? They're all shocked. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
It's hideous.
I know. I can imagine what it's like down there. We're sitting here. Every plane we keep an eye on. I imagine everybody throughout the city.
Looking
you see
up
a
at the
plane.
sky.
Yes.
I've had no luck making any communication except for I'm on a payphone. The cell phones are down. The displays are down.
Right.
I don't know why.
I
think we know why.
We decided to come to this location. I'm with Frank Herzog. We were on a sports story. We decided to come to this location because this is a very likely spot for an act of terrorism. Sad it is to say that, but and so we're just kind of keeping our eyes and ears open here.
All right, Rick, thank you very much. Let's go to Lauren Ashburn now, USA Today. She's Lauren.
Frank?
No,
This
is Andrea and Buck.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, Buck. I am on the 22nd floor of the USA Today Tower 1 building overlooking this immense plume of smoke, the E-ring of the Pentagon. You can't even see it from this distance. There is a helicopter hovering over the site, taking pictures and taking a look at what's happening inside. I'm looking down on traffic, which is completely gridlocked on Route 50 heading out of the city. Heading into the city on Route 395, you can see traffic is moving along quite quickly, and we have heard several fire trucks and EMS trucks pass us by here. I'm looking down right on the ground right now on the ramp that would take you to Route 110. They have blocked that off. There's a police officer standing right in the middle of the street right now.
Thank you very much. I just...
Let's go back to Dave, who is at the Pentagon site. Dave?
Hey, I just heard another explosion of some sort. Now, it could be a secondary explosion here from something happening, but we just heard a loud pop just as you were coming to me. It seemed to be on the east of here. I can't tell what it is. It might be something that's secondary to this because we had a number of small explosions after the fire occurred.
Dave, we understood there was construction. The area that was struck by the plane and what's on fire, was that the area under construction, so maybe there weren't a lot of people in that area?
There is, yeah, there's toward the south end of this area, there are construction trailers, I can say that. But I can't tell you for sure if this area would be sparsely populated. We're actually being asked to move back by Virginia State Police a little bit. We're going to try to keep this location as much as possible. The reason they asked us to move back is because, of course, they're concerned about any secondary explosions. I can tell you from my experience as a firefighter, there's still a great deal of fire inside the Pentagon by the smoke that's coming out of there. I'm sure firefighters are inside making sure first that they can get everybody out that they can and then trying to attack the fire inside. They've also had fire, of course, on the outside that have probably involved some sort of airplane fuel. That's why it burned so it's still burning, in fact, on the south end on the outside near those construction trailers. Again, I can't tell you much more other than a loud pop just a few minutes ago that seemed a little bit different than the ones we heard earlier, which were on the outside here that could have been tires or something else. We're just watching also as they're taking another man to the hospital. It looks like it's going to be a medevac, and what I can tell, it looks like he's burned. There seems to be a burn sheet on top of him. Medics are taking him to the U.S. Park Police Eagle helicopter. I think we'll try to get a shot of that. We're going to show you over here on Washington Boulevard. The Eagle helicopter from Park Police is landing, taking this man to the hospital. From my vantage point, it looks like he has burns. We also, besides Arlington Fire and Rescue, see some doctors, what appear to be doctors on the scene. Not sure if they're military or not, who seem to be helping with the injured. As you can see, Virginia State Police are, again, trying to move us back, but I think we've been able to stall them off for the moment. Again, this is the E-ring of the Pentagon. Hold on one second, Mike and Andrea. In fact, we're seeing a second man who clearly is burned being sent to that medevac helicopter.
Right behind that truck. Right there, right there.
As you can see, they're rushing him down here. This is a second person we have confirmed has what appears to be very serious burns.
Yes, we can see his hands being burned.
Can you take it back for a second? We need to coordinate something here. I'll be right back with you.
All right. We're just getting across the wire, too. Again, what preceded the Pentagon plane crash was the horrific destruction of the two planes crashing into the World Trade Center, which you see in our picture on the right-hand side of your screen. A witness said he saw bodies falling from the 110-story towers and people jumping out. There are no confirmed casualties or injuries, but looking at this.
This is tape.
This is tape from earlier this morning.
When the jet plowed in. Now we're getting word one of the World Trade Center towers in New York City has collapsed. It's collapsed, the structural damage from the two planes plowing in.
Also to let you know, because of what has happened, the Federal Aviation Administration has shut down all airplane traffic nationwide, nothing coming in, nothing going out. BWI will allow planes to land that were in the traffic pattern for landing, but I think after that, everything will be shut down. We're in a lockdown is basically what it is. All government buildings, major government buildings, have been evacuated. We heard from our crews on the scene that the Pentagon has been evacuated. Monuments and museums have been evacuated. Let's go to Frank Herzog, who is near one of the most visible monuments in the city, the Washington Monument. Frank, what do you see? What do you hear?
I'm on the west grounds of the Washington Monument. The area has been completely evacuated by Park Police, and I think I could answer Dave Statter's question about that secondary explosion.
Yes.
It wasn't an explosion. That was the sonic boom of jet fighters that were scrambled out of Andrews Air Force Base, we believe. They just circled the Washington area, flying from the east out to the west, and they were in a hurry, and they were high up in the air. So jet fighters, at least one, possibly two, were scrambled, probably as a precautionary measure. Needless to say, downtown Washington, D.C., except for the vehicular traffic, which is bumper to bumper, the rest of the city has been shut down. It looks like a Sunday morning here. The mall is absolutely empty. Park Police came through about 10 minutes ago, evacuated the entire area, and told tourists to go somewhere else. But I can tell you right now that at least one, if not two, jet fighters have been scrambled. They are patrolling the skies over Washington.
Frank Herzog, thank you very much. Let me just read you the lead. The Associated Press lead just came out of New York. First of all, let's check in with Dave Statter at the Pentagon. Dave?
It collapsed right now. As you can see, I assume you're taking our picture. I do not have a monitor, but right now we just had a middle section here of the E-ring of the Pentagon collapse from the amount of fire and destruction from this. So obviously there was a great deal of damage here. It just collapsed. We don't know who is inside or how many people are inside. You heard somebody, one of the people who was inside the building, talked to us a short time ago and said this E-ring of the Pentagon has a great many senior officials. So if somebody was planning something, this might have been the place if they wanted to get senior officials. Again, most of the fire on the outside of the building has been extinguished. There's still some spot fires on the outside of the building, and still, from what I can see, a great deal of fire inside. So now you have a gaping hole on the west side of the Pentagon here at Washington Boulevard, and this collapse just happened. It was not an explosion, a secondary explosion. This apparently the damage from the great deal of fire and the structural damage from the plane crash.
Any word yet, Dave, on casualties?
Other than seeing the two people we saw medevaced who had serious burns, I have not I can't confirm any others. They've been working on people, but we don't know what's inside that building, to be honest with you.
So
certainly anybody in those windows or in those offices by those windows, you have to be very, very concerned about right now.
All right, Dave Statter, reporting from the Pentagon. Here you can see from Dave's camera shot several people being escorted out of the Pentagon. The Pentagon is being evacuated, as is the White House, the U.S. Capitol.
Most monuments, museums, the city basically, as you've heard from Frank Herzog and from photojournalist Rick Armstrong near the Washington Monument, closed down. Almost everything is closed down.
As you can see, a portion of the Pentagon has collapsed. This happened after a jet apparently deliberately plowed into the Pentagon.
We have Daniel McAdams on the phone. He is an eyewitness. Daniel, good morning. What did you see and where are you?
I'm here in Arlington, just off of Columbia Pike, probably about 2.5 miles from the Pentagon. And we were sitting in our living room having coffee, and it sounded like a military jet flyover that they do sometimes, you know, a very, very low altitude flyover. And then just a couple of seconds later, we heard a massive boom. All of our doors and windows shook. We went outside, looked out the window, and then saw a plume of smoke.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much. Let's go back to Dave Statter. Dave, what do you have?
I know, Stat, they're evacuating us now. They believe another plane. This could be a rumor, but they're evacuating everybody. Possibility of another plane coming in this direction. Certainly, but this is a major evacuation at the moment. Again, it could all be a rumor, but FBI is evacuating everybody out of this area. I've got to go at the moment because they will not let me stay here.
Be safe, be safe. And we heard from Frank Herzog that boom that Dave thought he heard before was Air Force jets scrambling high up in the sky on alert. If there is something else coming in, we hope they get it first. We are looking again at the Pentagon, where an aircraft crashed into the Pentagon this morning, causing what we had just seen, a gaping hole in the E-ring of the Pentagon. Evacuations. We have seen transports burn victims. We do not know about any casualties. We don't know if everyone was evacuated from the Pentagon before that collapse. We are watching, as you just heard Dave Statter say, they are evacuating and moving back all of the news crews, getting people as far away from that building as possible because they thought they spotted another plane in the area. We do not have any confirmation on that, but we will keep you updated.
The Federal Aviation Administration has shut down all air traffic nationwide. This following the aircraft that crashed into the Pentagon. 2 jets, 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center up in New York City.
President Bush said today we have a national tragedy upon learning of the 2 planes crashing into the World Trade Center. He said he would be returning immediately to Washington, and the president has ordered a full-scale investigation to hunt down the folks, quote, who committed this act. And again, what you're looking at, within an hour of the Twin Towers explosion, an aircraft crashed at the Pentagon as well. The White House and other major government buildings, Treasury Department, Defense, have all been evacuated, and airplane traffic in and out all around the United States is closed down.
Let's go back to Lauren Ashburn, who's in the USA Today building in Roslyn. Lauren?
Yes, good morning, Buck and Andrea. I am taking a look right now at the Pentagon. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 helicopters I can see from the vista here in the USA Today Tower 1 building that overlooks
all of Washington from Arlington, Virginia. I can see 1 helicopter is on its way, it looks like to me, to the Washington Hospital Center. It's attempting a landing right now. I'm sure there are 2 others following in that direction at this point. I'm looking down at traffic. Traffic is at a standstill leaving the city. There are hardly any cars going into the city via Route 50. Traffic is backed up over the Memorial Bridge. And I'm looking down at police officers who are telling people to get off and turn around as they're coming in off of 395.
Yes, Lauren, we had heard that the Beltway near 395, which is that Pentagon exit, is closed down. So if you're leaving the home or going in that direction, don't. Go the other way, just stay put, stay home.
Now, Andrea.
Yes, Lauren.
I can see the sky. I know you had talked about possibly another plane from somewhere coming. I have a vista almost 180 degrees here across the horizon, and I can see not one single solitary plane.
Good.
The only thing I can see are those helicopters I talked to you about. The one helicopter has landed, it looks like to me, at Washington Hospital Center.
All right.
We have on the phone now Daryl Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins, you're an airline security expert with what organization?
Washington University Aviation Institute.
All right, sir. You've seen what's happened this morning. Give me your read.
Well, our lives will never be the same again. This will change everything we do in this city and everywhere else around here. This is the day that we will all remember until we die now. I can't even imagine anything more worse than what's going on right now. The terror is just unspeakable.
Basically what we probably have, Mr. Jenkins, is what, 3 hijackings and then the terrorist plowing to the World Trade Center and the Pentagon?
That's correct. Just the enormity that somebody would do something this awful to innocent people, there's no cause that can justify this. Everything about aviation will change, and even the Pentagon was under attack, and there's smoke coming from this. So whatever airports have been in the past, in terms of nightmarish getting through, the nightmare is only beginning because travel will become unspeakably difficult now.
What happened to airport security, sir?
I have no idea how any of this happened. We have no details at this time. I'm sure, though, that all resources will be brought to bear on this. In the future, getting through any airport will be very, very difficult. It will not be pleasant ever again.
I think you said it best, though, at the beginning. Our lives will never be the same. Everything will change after this.
Everything will change everywhere in this city and in just about everything that I do in commercial aviation.
Mr. Jenkins, I can remember years back. It was D.C. Police Chief Maurice Cullinane, Jerry Wilson, Isaac Fullwood. They all said someday terrorism is going to come to the United States.
Well,
I think today it did.
Today it did, and like we said earlier, our lives will never be the same. I assume right now our nation's under attack and we're at war with some foreign body.
All right, Daryl, thank you very much.
Daryl, thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of how everything is going to change, especially at major airports around the world, Gary Reels is at National Airport by phone. Gary, what's going on there?
Well, Andrea, it is, I hate to use a cliche, but it is truly a scene out of a movie here. The dark, acrid smoke wafting over from the Pentagon has shrouded the terminal area here at National Airport lightly, not a dense fog here at the airport, but a light fog nonetheless. And we've been here at the airport proper now for about 20 to 25 minutes. There is still a constant stream of people evacuating the entire airport. Of course, as you've been reporting, airport operations around the United States have been shut down very abruptly, and National Airport is certainly in the thick of that. There are still, at this hour, hundreds and hundreds of people evacuating, just streaming by foot. By foot, everybody's walking. There's a heavy security presence here, needless to say. And, of course, the people who are here and are leaving here can see very clearly the cause of this, and that is the plane crash into the Pentagon and the smoke. They're getting a first-hand taste of it.
All right, Gary, thank you. Gary Reels reporting.
One second. The State Department has just been evacuated after a possible explosion or a fire. A senior government official speaking on the condition of anonymity said the incident appears connected with the 2 plane attacks at the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. According to this source, quoting now, something has happened at the State Department. We don't know what yet. We hear it might have been a plane. Anybody, Frank or Rick, Lauren, can anybody see anything over at the State Department?
Statter?
Yeah, I'm here.
You hear anything about the State Department?
No, I know there was concern here. Let me describe what happened when we had to rush off a little while ago.
Yes.
There was concern, and we don't like to put rumors on the air, and I'm not sure that you can call this a rumor, but FBI on the scene at the Pentagon. told everybody to leave the area because there was concern of a hijacked plane that might be coming in this direction.
Hold
That's all
on.
we know.
Hey, Dave?
Yes.
We just got this bulletin from the Associated Press. A car bomb explodes outside the State Department. Being attributed to senior law enforcement officials. Again, a car bomb has just exploded.
Let's go to Frank Herzog, who is outside the State Department. Frank, what have you seen?
All right, we'll hold on for Frank.
Frank had been down at the area of the Washington
Let me
Monument.
just tell you, I mean, if you're just waking up, this is not a dream. This is not some B movie you're watching.
And this is not a Tom Clancy scenario. This is the real thing.
This morning, about 8:45, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center in New York. 18 minutes later, another plane, apparently a hijacked jet, out of Boston, bound for L.A., crashed into the world. You see the picture right there. That's the second explosion when this American Airlines jet, apparently hijacked, plowed into the World Trade Center. Then about an hour ago, there was an explosion at the Pentagon. A plane plowed into the Pentagon near the heliport.
Look at this.
Oh.
And one of the towers, we had reported that one had collapsed here, is proof that...
Frank Herzog, where are you?
I'm still at the Washington Monument. I'm looking at the State Department.
Yes. What do you see?
Nothing has happened there now. It looks all quiet, but I am getting reports from Park Police that another plane was hijacked out of Pittsburgh. That's the word they're getting. Another plane was hijacked out of Pittsburgh, which may explain why those two fighter jets were scrambled out of here about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah,
but so far, the State Department is quiet. There's no indication of anything going on in the building. All we hear is just the constant wail of sirens here in downtown Washington.
Again, to confirm what Dave Statter told us just a few minutes ago, Pentagon officials are evacuating people from the area of the Pentagon, fearing another plane could be en route. Frank Herzog has been told by a U.S. Park Police officer there's been another hijacking, this plane out of Pittsburgh. Apparently, we got to they're scrambling out of Andrews Air Force Base.
Other major government institutions, including Treasury and the State Department, were being evacuated even before we heard about something possibly being directed specifically at the State Department after the explosion at the Pentagon. Again, we are looking at two pictures. The one on the left of your screen is the Pentagon, where a section of that building has collapsed, struck by an aircraft. This is New York City, where one of the Twin Towers collapsed after it was struck by aircraft, one of the 110-story towers.
Emilio Villano, he's a terrorism expert over at American University. Sir, are you with us here? Emilio? I think we lost him. The phones in this area, everybody's on a cell phone.
Trying to get out. This was live of the second tower. We believe the second tower of the World Trade Center just collapsed. That's what you were looking at live. You can't see very well through the smoke, but it is obvious that those two large structures that we saw just a little while ago aren't there. We're going to pick up live coverage from our sister station in New York, WCBS. Let's listen to what they're saying.
Now reduced to a pile of rubble and ash, smoke billowing above the city. Jim Smith, stay with us if you will. What is the evaluation and what else you're able to see from your vantage point?
Well, Michael, we have seen the entire lower half of Manhattan just completely covered in smoke, debris, dust. Everything well south of Canal Street is just completely and covered in this smoke and dust at this time. There is not anything recognizable of what were the two trade towers, nothing standing out from those clouds of dust at this time.
My goodness.
We understand the schools in the area reporting that the children who were there, at last report, the children were safe. They're saying that the parents, if you can get there, and in this, frankly, it'd be quite difficult. The schools are under a lockdown. The children are not allowed to leave unless the parents come to get them. But we have heard word that the children are okay. The casualties here are far, we don't even want to speculate.
No,
we do have reporters at St. Vincent's, at Bellevue, throughout the city, crews throughout the city. We know that you're worried about your loved ones down there. This is the financial district of the world, and clearly untold number of people that are down there right now, and this is as close as we can get to the scene. Jim Smith, you're about, what, 5 miles?
Yeah, that's right, Michael. We're about 5 to 6 miles away. We've been forced to move to Staten Island at this point to bring you these pictures. And we understand to go along with the airport shutting down and no airplanes being allowed to take off nationwide, we have been in contact with military aircraft in the area. that are enforcing a complete no-fly zone. Once we land, we will not be allowed to take back off. So as aircraft are removed from the area, none will be allowed back in.
That's understandable. Langley Air Force Base, all the Air Force bases you would imagine are on high alert. Possibly, I don't know if anybody's, we're not hearing that. We're trying to get the beat on whether the military and to what aspect the military has been and is taking action about this. Again, not a confirmation per se, but it's hard to imagine that this is anything but a terrorist attack. We're getting some information here.
Just the timeline of the events, but let's stay with what you're looking at, if we could, as a live picture of what is left of the Manhattan skyline. Jim, I want to bring you back in because we have reports that there are United States fighter jets cruising the area over New Jersey. Can you confirm that?
Yes, we can. Our pilot has been in contact with some F-16 fighters that have been in the area. We do not know exactly.
All right, welcome back to Eyewitness News. We want to report Mark Brady of Prince George's County Fire and EMS telling all duty personnel to report to their duty stations immediately, regardless of their schedule. They want all Prince George's Fire and EMS personnel to report to their duty stations.
One of our photojournalists, Denny Bly, has just called in. He says there's at least 15 people injured at the Pentagon.
We saw the tower. Both towers now collapsed at World Trade Center, and from American Airlines, they are saying the plane that crashed into the World Trade Center was one of theirs. It was Flight 11 from Boston to Los Angeles. That was American Airlines Flight 11 from Boston to Los Angeles was the plane that crashed into the World Trade Center. This AP advisory is from American Airlines.
Anthony Garrett was inside the Pentagon when the plane slammed into the area near the heliport, the E-ring. Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
You okay?
I'm fine, yes, thank you.
Tell me what you heard, what you saw.
Well, excuse me, I was over there just meeting with some of my customers. I'm a defense contractor, and we were standing around watching the CNN report on the World Trade Center incident. Yeah. When we felt a jolt, something along the lines I would suspect of like a minor tremor, and then a strong gust of air went through the hallways. Immediately after that, someone in the hallway started yelling, "Get out of the building now!"
Panic inside there?
Excuse me?
Was there panic inside there?
Yeah, it got fairly chaotic quickly as everyone was trying to run down the narrow corridors there on the D ring to get to an exit.
You believe this, Mr. Garrett?
It's certainly of great concern, I guess.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly, I guess.
You were talking about panic. We want to go to Bruce LeShan. He's on the phone, and there's panic, as you can imagine, downtown. Bruce, can you hear us?
Yes, Andrea. I would describe it as kind of quiet chaos here. Many of the buildings have been evacuated in downtown, and there are thousands of people out on the street trying to figure out how to get home. There are long lines next to the parking garages as people try and get their cars and get out of downtown. Around the executive mansion, people evacuated from the White House grounds, and they're setting up a rather wide perimeter around there, at least down as far as 15th Street on one side there. The uniformed Secret Service officers have been putting out yellow tape and refusing to let anybody get near the White House Treasury Department complex in that area. And a lot of people who were working on the White House grounds and in the surrounding office buildings kind of walking around with shocked looks on their faces. A lot of rumors flying around here. So far, no specific incidents downtown, but many emergency crews running around and heading in various directions, trying to deal with anything that might crop up. I actually saw 2 paramedic units from Walter Reed Hospital coming all the way down here downtown to kind of station themselves and prepare for whatever might happen. Advice for people who are watching and might have business downtown: don't. Yeah. Do not come down here. It is absolute gridlock down here, and they're doing their best to keep everybody out and the streets cleared, and it is a very difficult proposition.
Bruce LeShan, thank you. Please stay in touch. We're getting word, too. CNN is reporting that, as we told you, Capitol Hill, the Capitol has been evacuated. Now CNN is reporting that members of Congress have been taken to a secure location. Members of Congress being taken to a secure location for their protection.
This is unbelievable.
The United States basically has been attacked. The U.S. has been attacked by terrorists this morning.
Wall Street is shut down. The nearby World Financial Center, which houses NYMEX, was evacuated. The American Stock Exchange, the New York Mercantile Exchange, the Chicago Board of Trade has suspended trading today. Business and trading in other parts of the country have been affected by this. Around the country and around the world, the investment community is on hold.
Dave Statter is at the Pentagon. Dave, can you hear me?
I hear you, Mike. The fire continues to burn out of control at the Pentagon. It looked like they were making some headway. We don't know if they had to pull back because of the threat that came in here, but right now there's still a great deal of fire inside the Pentagon at the moment. Firefighting operations may have ceased for a little bit because of the threat. The threat, again, which you've been talking about, is that there's some other plane that may have been hijacked. FBI agents on the scene here moved everybody they could away from the Pentagon, including us. There was a brief bit of panic as people ran, and they forced us out of the area. We're now a little bit further away, looking at the west side of the Pentagon, near the heliport, the E-ring, where they say a lot of senior officials' offices are. It continues to burn. I guess about 20, 30 minutes, sort of lost track of time. That whole middle section collapsed. That wasn't from the initial explosion, apparently from the great amount of fire there and the damage done when the plane hit. Still have conflicting reports over what size plane hit. We heard one eyewitness tell us that it was a small plane that he seemed to see as he was coming across the 14th Street Bridge. Believe it or not, somebody else said they saw something as big as a 757. We just don't have the confirmation for you yet. Number of injured, medevac taken by helicopter from the area. They seem to be suffering very serious burns. Again, the fire burns out of control, continues to burn on the west side of the Pentagon here.
Dave, from your vantage point from where you are, you can't see any portion of the plane. Is that correct?
There was debris all over the place. In fact, I looked down. Mike Trammell, photographer, and Heather Cabot, a reporter here, said look down, and there was a small piece of what apparently
Hold
was
on,
a plane.
Dave.
Sure.
Hold on just a second. We got a bulletin from AP. A large plane has just crashed in western Pennsylvania. Again, the Associated Press is reporting a large plane has just crashed in western Pennsylvania. That's according to officials at the Somerset County Airport. That's near Pittsburgh. Again, we had a report of another plane, a hijacking near Pittsburgh. Now we're getting a report of a large plane crash in western Pennsylvania, Somerset County.
We have someone on the phone. I couldn't get the name. Tell me who you are, please. Dr. Gerald Post is joining us by phone. Dr. Post, your reactions?
Well, the coordinated nature of this attack makes it clear we're not just talking about an isolated group, and I'm sure the dominant suspicion, although no responsibility has been claimed, will be with the Al-Qaeda network of Osama bin Laden. It's really. When I turned on television, I must say, I thought it was some sort of fantasy movie.
Right. Dr. Post, we have this quote from Chris Yates, an aviation expert at Jane's Transport in London. He's quoted as saying, it takes a logistics operation from the terror group involved that is second to none. And you would agree with that.
That's absolutely correct. And that makes it clear we're talking about a major organization with highly sophisticated operatives. And
Doctor, where's our intelligence?
Yeah, how do we protect ourselves against this?
That's one of the terrible things about terrorism and how difficult it is to protect about the unknown, unseen adversary.
Do we do anything as a terrorist expert? What should be our response? Since so far, no group has claimed responsibility. What should we be doing now?
Well, the first effort, obviously, apart from responding to this multiple site attack, is to identify who is responsible. Having said that, as we saw with the embassy bombings, in fact, I was recently involved in the trial in
Dr.
federal
Post,
court.
let me interrupt you for a second. Again, our viewers, if you're just tuning in, you're looking at the smoke at the harbor in New York resulting from the collapse of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. We're still getting another report from AP as well that senior law enforcement officials say a car bomb has exploded outside the State Department. It was already among buildings in the nation's capital evacuated earlier due to the attacks. The official says, quote, something has happened at the State Department. We hear it might have been a plane, then we're hearing car bombs. We don't know. Again, this could just be fear and rumor, but this is coming from quoted a senior law enforcement official saying something has happened outside the State Department. If any of our reporters are able to clue us in on that. Mike?
CBS is reporting that there's been another hijacking. A 737 unknown what airline has been hijacked. CBS is reporting that plane is now circling Dulles International Airport. Again, CBS reporting another hijacking. 737 passenger jet has been hijacked. The report is it's now circling in the area of Dulles International Airport.
Here's a quote from a service station employee. What the hell is going on in the country now? That's the reaction after seeing from his vantage point the crash and the smoke at the Pentagon.
Again, the initial report we got from our colleague Denny Bly is that 15 people have been hurt. Somewhere buried in that rubble is a jet. There have been conflicting reports whether it's a large commercial jet or a private jet.
They said witnesses say Pentagon employees are walking down Columbia Pike to get away from the scene. There are long lines forming at payphones as people try to make contact with friends and family to let them know they're all right.
Cell phones won't work.
Cell phones won't work.
Hold on, there is apparently a mass exodus from downtown D.C., creating incredible gridlock as office workers try to get home. The district government has ordered all workers out of all of its buildings. All of the area is shutting down. Back to Dave Statter. Dave?
Yeah, I'm here, Mike. We just had a military jet fly over here, very low. We can tell you from the people we've been talking to coming from the Pentagon, they'd have very little in the way of information, and there's a lot, as you talk about rumors, that have been circulating through here about another possible attack, and certainly the hijacked planes you've talked about that seem to be confirmed. So that is causing a great deal of concern here. There's still a lot of Pentagon employees just standing outside, looking in, basically with their mouths wide open, trying to comprehend this. We see some what may be high officials at times, racing by us, heading toward the Pentagon. The fire continues to burn out of control, and I have to tell you, there are fires that have happened in the Pentagon before, certainly not from terrorist attacks, and it's a very difficult situation to fight a fire in the Pentagon. Again, the world's largest office building, I think it's been called in the past, and there's so many nooks and crannies that fire can get into, and I'm sure that's a big problem here. And as you saw earlier and can see now, there's a gaping hole in the west side of the Pentagon where a great deal of fire continues to burn here at the E-ring, the west side, near the heliport of the Pentagon. But the biggest problem here is solid information. And as you can imagine, the line of communications are down. You talked about the cell phones, almost impossible to use. Anybody out there is waiting for a call from a loved one and you know they have a cell phone, they're probably not going to get through. There's cellular gridlock at the moment. Do we have an eyewitness here? We have an eyewitness, I think, to what happened here at the Pentagon. If you have a moment, Heather Cabbage bringing that person over here. Can you tell me what you saw and where you were?
Well, we were on Columbia Pike where the shelter is. And all of a sudden, you can hear the noise coming first, and then you can feel the shaking of the building. And we just looked up out of the window, and I saw the tail end go.
What size plane?
It was for me, it looked like a big size plane. It was definitely a passenger plane. And everything shook, and then all of a sudden you just heard this big explosion, and somebody said, my God, they hit the Pentagon, they hit the Pentagon. And I didn't know that they had hit the World Trade Centers this morning. And then,
we've seen a couple injured who've been taken out. Have you seen any others?
I've seen people, yeah. I've seen a few injuries. And they lined up stretchers or those things they use, for the bodies. And a whole slew of people just went in line, military people, heading that way. So I take it that it was a lot of injuries.
What's your name?
Mark Eason.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sir.
So there you hear it, another person who witnessed the attack earlier this morning here at the Pentagon when the plane crashed into the west side of the Pentagon. All the area roads leading to the Pentagon, of course, are shut down. Arlington police came in a few minutes ago, chasing many of the bystanders away, telling them to get out of here, much as the FBI did, because they're concerned about another attack happening. Mike and Andrea.
All right, Dave, we're just getting across the wire, too. D.C. Fire is assisting Arlington battle the fire at the Pentagon. D.C. Fire and EMS personnel are to report to their duty stations at once. The same for Prince George's Fire and EMS. All duty personnel should report to their duty stations regardless of their schedule, all in an effort to help what's happening in Arlington, Virginia, and give those folks a hand as well. As we've been reporting, this is the most audacious terrorist attack that's ever taken place in the world, says an aviation expert at Jane's Transport in London. It takes a logistics operation from the terror group involved that is second to none. Only a small handful of terror groups is on that list. The name at the top of the list, Osama bin Laden, but so far no group, no nation has claimed responsibility for the horror that is happening across our country.
Let me tell you, we're getting a lot of phone calls. Let me, before we give you a recap on what's happened this morning, this is from D.C. schools. Schools will remain open and close at the scheduled time. Students should be kept indoors for the remainder of the day. We believe students are safer at school than elsewhere. Students may, of course, be released to their parents. This comes from the Office of Community Relations. All evening activities canceled. Well, we don't need to go into that. Elementary students currently at Wolf Trap are being transported back to their base school. School principals are empowered to make individual decisions in the best interest of their students and staff. All right, let's take a look back at what began about 8:45 this morning.
First off, at 8:45, we had a plane crash into the World Trade Center. This plane crash, American Airlines is telling us this second one that you see, the fireball, was Flight 11, Boston to Los Angeles. It was a D.C.-based American Airlines crew aboard that plane.
Now you're going to see the first well, hold on a second here.
Now you're going to see
look at this.
One of the towers to collapse. This is the World Trade Center, 110-story tower. And then shortly after that, the second tower just collapsing into a pile of rubble.
Here's the AP lead out of New York. In a horrific sequence of destruction, terrorists crashed 2 planes into the World Trade Center, and the twin 110-story towers collapsed this morning. Explosions also rocked the Pentagon, and there was a car bomb at the State Department. Let's go to Frank Herzog. Frank?
Buck, I'm down at the Washington Monument Grounds. The park police here are in the process of just evacuating the entire area. Dave Statter mentioned a few minutes ago another military aircraft that was scrambled out of Andrews. We saw it bear off towards the southwest, possibly in response to the reports that you've got of the aircraft over Dulles. I can now confirm that the White House, about a half an hour ago, vehicles pulled up in the south entrance of the White House, apparently moving some key personnel out. And we've been able to spot on the White House roof Special Operations Forces personnel of the Secret Service, 3 of them. They're equipped with binoculars and a super long telescopic lens to be able to spot any incoming aircraft. And as you know, they are also equipped with handheld surface-to-air missiles to take an aircraft down. So they are up patrolling the top of the White House. In fact, Rick Armstrong, the photographer here, said just a few minutes ago they were checking him out through that long lens. Park police have shut down all the monuments, all of the museums downtown. They're telling all the visitors, all the people who are here, to just go on home. They're hoping to get most of this traffic out of Washington as quickly as it can. But again, for the last 45 minutes, all we've heard here is the wail of sirens and, of course, seeing the sight of that smoke billowing up from the Pentagon. Mike?
All right, Frank, thank you. Trying to get people out of the downtown area, we just want to let you know Metro is still open, but Metro is on high alert. They say no threats have been confirmed. Also, all Alexandria Fire Department personnel are to report to their duty stations at once. And again, D.C. Fire and Emergency Medical Services people, as well as Prince George's Fire and Emergency Medical Service people, to report to their duty stations at once, regardless of their schedules.
Virginia Medical Center, where many of the people injured in the Pentagon crash explosion have been taken. The last word we had was from our photojournalist Denny Bly, who said there were at least 15 people hurt. This is the scene at the Virginia Hospital Center.
We just want to let you know the Social Security Administration offices in Baltimore says all offices, Social Security Administration offices in New York and Washington have been closed. Let's go to Lauren Ashburn from her site at the Gannett Towers. What do you see, Lauren? What do you hear?
Well, good morning, Andrea. Right now with me is Joel Suckerman. He was on his way into work, I believe, when he saw an American Airlines jet crash into the Pentagon. Joel, tell me what you saw.
Well, traffic was very heavy this morning, so it was bumper to bumper. We were all stopped. I was probably about 100 yards from the Pentagon when I heard this screaming sonic boom and saw the jet come screaming across the highway. It was an American Airlines jet, silver with the markings along the windows, and within seconds it hit the side of the Pentagon. My first thought was, my God, it's coming in so low for landing at National, but it screamed across Route 110, hit the west side of the Pentagon. Immediately there were flames that shot up, higher flames, white smoke, and then within seconds...
We're interrupting Lauren Ashburn's broadcast to go to Gordon Peterson live near the Pentagon. Gordon?
Gordon's actually with me. It's Dave Statter. We're going to come to Gordon in a second. Gordon has an eyewitness, but first we have Lieutenant Colonel Art Hobode, who's Air Force Public Affairs, the first official word we've gotten from anyone. Colonel, can you tell us what you know?
All we know at this point in time was that there was an explosion. Eyewitnesses have told us that it was some type of aircraft that struck the building. At this point, the key that we want to keep people away from the building as far back as possible. And if people have loved ones in the building, please let the fire and rescue people do their work. We want to stay away from the building as much as we can, because all we're doing right now is inhibiting the fire and rescue folks by people trying to come to the building and find out about their loved ones.
Are there people in that building dead?
I do not know.
Number of injured?
Have no idea at this point.
Size of plane?
According to the eyewitness, he said that it looked like a corporate jet, but I have no official word on that at this point.
That's the E-ring of the Pentagon, senior officials there?
There are senior officials on the E-ring of the Pentagon. I don't know in that particular location whether or not there were any or not.
Anything else you can describe for us to the public? What is we're seeing that's burned and collapsed? What goes on in that area?
No, it's obviously it's an administrative area, just like the Pentagon is. And I don't have any details on that particular portion.
Okay, that's Lieutenant Colonel Art Hobode, Air Force Public Affairs. Gordon Peterson is here also. I'll let Gordon talk to you now.
Okay, gents, will you come over here so we can see you? I need a mic, Bruce, okay? This is Omar Campos and his friend Adil Raji. Omar doesn't speak English, so Adil's going to translate for us. Omar, you were an eyewitness, yes?
Yeah.
What did you see?
¿Cuál te lo viste? Oh, bueno, lo que yo vi, o sea que yo estaba trabajando en el edificio que tenemos aquí al costado. He was working right here outside of the building. You know, to the building right there. Yo estaba trabajando hacia afuera. He was working outside. Take to the twist out, a little twist out, you know. He take like the trash and stuff like this.
We're going to break into Gordon Peterson's report there from the Pentagon along with Dave Statter. Just want to let you know, Federal Protective Services now says there was no car bomb at the State Department. No car bomb at the State Department, but that building had already been under an evacuation alert following credible threats made to the White House.
And we also have confirmation now that a large plane, apparently a jet, has crashed in western Pennsylvania. This crash, of course, comes just hours after terrorists crashed 2 planes into the World Trade Center in New York City. The twin 110-story towers have collapsed. Explosions also rocked the Pentagon. As Andrea just told you, there was no car bomb at the State Department.
The Kennedy Center is closed this evening. All activities at the Kennedy Center closed. There was going to be Kennedy family members there for the unveiling of a new exhibit in tribute to the late president, but nothing will be going on at the Kennedy Center this evening due to the urgent.
Let's go back to Gordon Peterson at the Pentagon.
Gordon, you're back on. Gordon? Okay, Andrea, we're back talking to Omar Campos and his friend Adil Raji is translating for him. Now, Omar, you say this was a smaller plane, 10 to 15 passengers, maybe?
No es muy grande. No es muy grande. It's not like too big. It's just. Tú sabes los aviones comerciales. It's like business airplane.
Like a business jet, and it was a jet.
Yeah, it's like a business airplane. Yeah.
And what did you see the aircraft do?
Pero ¿cuál tú lo viste exacto? Oh, bueno, yo lo vi que me pasó así por encima y tú sabes que venía muy bajo y movía hasta los árboles según venía debajo.
He say it's gone very fast down each move, then it goes straight to the buildings.
And big explosion.
Yeah, it's like...
it's
muy
big.
grande.
Sí.
Pero ¿sabe qué colores?
Lo alcancé a ver que era como blanco por bajo y como así alrededor como celeste.
What color was it?
It's like white in the top, it's like blue color downstairs.
White on the top and blue on the color.
It's not like
blue on the
like white blue. Como los aeroplanes de aquí, de América.
American
como así.
Algo así como los de la United, you know.
He said like a United States airplane.
And Gordon, you know, there's one thing we've heard from some conflicting information. They're saying like a large business type airplane. Others have said it's been as large as a 767.
Right.
There are conflicting reports we should tell people, including some military people who seem to have witnessed or getting information that it may be that large.
Right.
Okay.
Are you an eyewitness as well?
Well, we only seen the back part as it was going over our building. And
what's your name?
Mark Eason.
And what did you see, Mark?
Just the plane. We were upstairs and from the window, and we heard the rumbling first, and then the plane just flew over top of us. It was so low that everything just...
Where were you?
On Columbia Pike. And it scared the mess out of us. And all of a sudden, when it went past, you know, I ran downstairs and they just said, you know, it was a big explosion. They said, oh my God, it hit the Pentagon, it hit the Pentagon.
Now, I know you just caught a glimpse.
All right, we're going to break away for just a second. We've got Adrian Bailey on the phone with the Arlington County School System. Adrian?
Yes.
Could you tell us what's going to be the situation? We're getting a lot of calls from parents.
Anxious parents.
Yes, we've been getting a lot of calls for concerned parents, rightly so. What we've decided to do is to keep the children in the building rather than evacuating. We feel that they're safer there, and if concerned parents would like to come by and pick their children up, they're more than welcome to do that, but they will remain in the buildings today.
All right, regular closing time?
Regular closing time is different for various schools. It can be anywhere from 2:20 to 3:10.
But you're going to stick to that schedule, is what you're saying?
Yes, we are.
Adrian, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to Frank Herzog, who is near the Washington Monument. Frank?
We're seeing what looks like a medevac helicopter going up the Potomac River right now from the Pentagon area. Smoke continues to billow there, and we can confirm that no signs of any smoke or anything around the State Department. So I think that was a bogus report. I can tell you that the security is still very heightened on top of the White House. The security people up there are looking out to the west. We have got unconfirmed reports, another plane out there. They say about 4 miles out, but we have not been able to confirm that at all.
All right.
As you can imagine, the way things are going right now, we're going to have reports left and right of things that are going to be true and untrue.
And Frank, we just want to underscore what you said. We heard from federal officials there was no car bomb at the State Department. Right. Nothing at the State Department. Thank you, Frank.
We do see jet fighters overhead. I just see one going off to the south now. Mm-hmm. So they are patrolling this area very heavily. There are at least 3 or 4 jet fighters in the air over Washington right now.
I mean, just unbelievable. Sorry. Let me just tell you, at the World Trade Center...
is no more.
Yeah, the World Trade Center is gone.
It's gone. That's what you're looking at on the right-hand side of your screen. Don't try to call anybody in New York. I tried to call my daughter to find out where she was because they've closed down some subway traffic, and as you can imagine, an anxious parent wanting to make sure, but you can't get through. Don't try. People have work to do there, and
an aviation expert says this is perhaps the most audacious terrorist attack that's ever taken place in the world.
They suspect that there are only few terrorist groups that could have put together something like this. At the top of the list, of course, is the name of Osama bin Laden, but so far, no one, no group, no nation has claimed responsibility for the horror that's been wreaked on the United States this morning.
You want to recap here, Andrea? Let's just pick it up. Started, about 8:45 this morning?
8:45 this morning.
That's when a plane crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
About 18 minutes later, the tower on the left was attacked by American Airlines Flight 11 out of a Boston to Los Angeles flight. That was confirmed by American Airlines. And the billowing smoke came pouring out, and we have reports of people saying they saw bodies, people trying to jump out the buildings. The flames resulted in the collapse of the first tower that was struck. And then shortly after that, the second tower came crumbling to the ground, and the World Trade Center, the 110 twin towers, are just a heap of rubble.
Yeah, we do not have a casualty figure. I can tell you this,
But
about 50,000 people work in that building. The police and fire rescue workers were trying to evacuate, get the people out of there at the time that the buildings collapsed. We have no idea how many people got out.
You know, just imagine in 1993 when the explosion happened there, 6 people were killed, but over 1,000 were injured there from falling glass. And this is definitely much worse. This is a live picture from New York where the World Trade Center, if you've ever visited there, gone up in the towers, they're gone. Then, about an hour after that, on the left-hand side of your screen, billowing smoke, the Pentagon. A plane crashed into the west side of the Pentagon. Conflicting reports on the size of the plane, whether it was a corporate jet size. Some people say it's as large as a 757, whatever it was. That's the result of that crash, a gaping hole in the west side of the Pentagon. We do not know if everyone was evacuated from that building. We do not know if there are any fatalities, but we do know there were injuries, burn injuries. We have seen people taken by stretcher, transported to area hospitals, Washington Hospital Center burn unit, to Arlington Hospital, where we've heard that at least 15 people were transported.
Let's go to Lauren Ashburn. She's in the USA Today building over in Roslyn. Lauren?
Yes, hi, Buck and Andrea. We're on the 22nd floor of the USA Today Tower. Over my left-hand shoulder is the Pentagon building with the billowing smoke. To my right here is Joel Suckerman. He is the assistant managing editor of USAtoday.com. On his way to work, he witnessed the plane crash into the Pentagon. Joel, tell us what you saw.
Well, while listening to the radio reports of the World Trade Center problem, there was a sonic boom, and looking straight ahead, there was a jet, what looked to be an American Airlines jet, probably a 757, and it came screaming across the highway. It was Route 110 on the west side of the Pentagon. The plane went west to east, hit the west side of the Pentagon. Immediately, flames were streaming up into the air. There was white smoke, and then within seconds, thick black smoke. Everybody got out of their cars. People were shocked. Then there was another plane that was off to the southwest, and it made a beeline straight up into the sky and then angled off, and we weren't sure if that was going to come around and make another hit or if it was just trying to get out of the way. That disappeared, and we didn't see it again.
All right, describe the first plane again. You say it was a commercial jet. Do you know how many engines?
I did not see the engines. I saw the body and the tail, and it was a silver jet with the markings along the windows that spoke to me as an American Airlines jet. This was not a commercial, a business jet, right? It was not a Learjet, Gulfstream, something like that. It was a bigger plane than that.
And what were people doing? Could you see the effects at the Pentagon at that point?
The Pentagon just turned black, charred, and then the flames came up. We were all worried because it was bumper-to-bumper traffic, and everybody stopped, and everybody got out of their cars. We were just worried if there was another explosion, it would just come, shoot fire at us, and we would all be toast. There was just nowhere to go.
Right. Okay, Joel Suckerman, assistant managing editor of USAtoday.com. Right now we're on the 22nd floor of the USA Today building, the Pentagon over my left-hand shoulder. We're keeping an eye on the vista here. We have about a 180-degree vista where we have been watching helicopters land and take off. We can look straight down onto Route 66 as people have abandoned their cars and are walking out of the city. Buck and Andrea.
All right, Lauren, thank you. We're getting some reaction from the world, around the world, responding to what is happening here this morning in the United States. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his condolences to the American people over the terrorist attacks, calling them terrible tragedies. This mass terrorism is the new evil in our world today. In Great Britain, Prime Minister Tony Blair, who canceled a speech at a trade union conference, quote, says this is perpetrated by fanatics who are utterly indifferent to the sanctity of human life, and we, the democracies of this world, are going to have to come together and fight it together. From President Jacques Chirac of France, in a nationally televised statement, called the attacks on the United States monstrous and expressed his solidarity with the American people. Again, you're looking at Virginia Hospital Center in Arlington, where some of the wounded, we and about 15 people were transported from the Pentagon to Arlington Hospital. Others more seriously burned to the burn unit at the Washington Hospital Center. Again, this all began this morning about 8:45 in New York, where reaction is it's like a war zone. I just saw the building I work in come down, said one businessman. I just saw the top of Tray 2 come down. People were jumping out of buildings. I guess people were trying to save themselves. Oh my God. Again, flights in and out of the United States have been canceled.
All
Virtually all
have been grounded,
airline
basically.
traffic.
There'll be no
PWI
takeoffs.
was admitting some planes to land,
Yeah.
but basically there
No
is nothing
takeoffs.
going. If you were expecting someone, they're not going to be coming in. If you were going to leave this morning, you're not going anywhere. All air traffic has stopped.
D.C. Department of Transportation officials recommend anyone trying to get out of the city, and that's thousands and thousands of people, take the southeast-southwest freeway. You can't take 95,
Can't do anything.
395, everything is
Metro
jammed.
is open, but they are on high alert. Let's go back to Gordon Peterson at the Pentagon.
Andrea and Mike, I'm here with a familiar face, Mike Walder of USA Today. Mike, you actually saw this happen. Tell us what you saw.
I did indeed, Gordon. You know, like everyone else, I was listening to the radio to the accounts of what was going on in New York. I was listening to President Bush, and we were stuck in traffic. We're coming off the exit here, and I looked up and I saw this American Airlines jet coming in very low, and I watched it, and it clipped. I don't know if you can see it over here. It clipped this pole over here.
The emotions
slammed right into the building. Huge explosion, and then utter pandemonium, as you might imagine. I mean, everybody was screaming, "Oh my God!" People started saying, "We've got to turn around." They hit the Pentagon. A frantic woman turned her car around and started weaving her way out. I got out of my car and went over here, and we could see military personnel bringing tarps out and setting up like a triage unit, a number of stretchers. As they you know, you could hear fire engines. Just it was the sirens as they arrived. They started to hit the building with the foam, and actually we're doing a pretty good job. And then we saw the triage people with the stretchers running, sprinting over here, but at that point they moved us back, and of course there was a threat of another plane coming here at that time, and I don't know what's happened with that.
Now, you're sure it was an American Airlines plane?
You know, we were stuck in traffic, could not move. I could see the big AA, the silver jet itself. I thought it was a 737. I may be mistaken there, but there was no doubt about it. It was American Airlines slammed right into the building, and there was no doubt about it. Whoever was piloting that plane was aiming for the Pentagon.
And we do know they hit a taxi cab. The plane hit a taxi cab up here on the bridge, the overpass.
I didn't know that. I did not see. I saw the ball of fire, and I saw it clip these poles, and then the billowing smoke, a gray column of smoke, and then pandemonium.
Dave? They're bringing in looks like at least three now more medevac helicopters here. I don't know if that means they found more victims there. We know we saw earlier at least 2 people seriously burned, taken out of here by medevac helicopters. Certainly the people in those offices after the initial fire and another ambulance. Also, D.C. Fire Department has sent people across the bridges over here to help Arlington fight the fire, which, as you can see, is still out of control. So there's still a lot of activity going on here in fighting the fire and dealing with the injured.
Gordon, I talked to a staff sergeant who was in the building on the 3rd floor. He arrived for work probably around 7:45, and he said when it hit, the doors to the offices flew open. But he did say it was an orderly, it wasn't chaotic, it was an orderly transition out of the building and everyone got out.
All right, this is the scene from right now live at the Virginia Hospital Center, where several injured people have been taken from the Pentagon after a passenger jet deliberately plowed into the Pentagon, hit near the heliport on the 395 side. People coming in by private cars, some of the walking wounded.
We just want to let you know we've told you that all airports in the United States are closed, nothing coming in, nothing going out. Scandinavian Airlines rerouted 3 of its planes bound for New York and 1 for Washington from Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. Flights to the United States were suspended from Portugal, and the Belgian airline recalled 2 of its flights on the way to the United States. A lot of these planes are being diverted to Canada, but all planned flights from overseas.
We know you're
worried.
We know you're worried about the kids at school. Let me tell you, we've heard from the Arlington School District and D.C. school officials. Here's what they say. Kids are going to remain at school inside buildings until closing time. The buses will operate as normal. Parents who want to pick up their children early from school may do so. Otherwise, the kids are going to be in school until the regular
and probably
closing time.
safer there. Mayor Tony Williams and senior police commanders are meeting at this hour at the Reeves Center in Northwest Washington. They're assessing the situation. We've been talking about the hijacked planes being American Airlines planes. American Airlines has scheduled a press conference for about 11:30, 11:45 to tell us everything they know. We understand that one of the planes that crashed into the second tower at the World Trade Center was American Airlines Flight 11, Boston to Los Angeles, with a DC-based crew on board.
That's one of those that plowed into
the World Trade Center.
Now, let me give you this. Large plane has crashed about an hour ago just north of the Somerset County Airport in Pennsylvania, not far from Pittsburgh. The plane, believed to be a 747 jumbo jet, crashed about 10 a.m. It went down about 8 miles east of Jennerstown. That's according to County 911 dispatches. Officials are not saying what airline was involved. It's unclear if the crash was related to the terrorist attacks in New York City and here.
We're getting some information from CBS sharing with us what they've learned as to where the planes involved in these terrorist attacks were based. American Airlines number 11 out of Boston. That's the plane that crashed into the one of the towers of the World Trade Center. Another plane, United Flight 175, came out of Dulles. Another American Airlines Flight 77, Dulles-based, bound for Los Angeles. And then there is a fourth flight, United 93, from Newark to San Francisco. These are the planes that CBS is reporting were involved in the terrorist acts this morning.
All right, so you've got
American
1, 2,
Airlines,
3,
1, 2, 3, 4
planes.
that CBS has found out were involved in the crashes this morning.
We know that 2 crashed into the World Trade Center.
We know
1
American Airlines
crashed
number
into
11.
the Pentagon.
1 crashed into the Pentagon. And you're reporting that 1 may have crashed outside of Pittsburgh?
They've got a report that the large plane crashed, about an hour ago. The plane is believed to be a 747 jumbo jet. This is near Pittsburgh.
We just want to let you know we have some school closings to report. No reason given why, but Prince George's County schools are closing 2 hours early.
Because of these attacks, the Federal Aviation Administration has ordered all departing flights canceled nationwide. No flights taking off nationwide. Any planes in the air were ordered to land at the nearest airport.
You just saw shots from Virginia Hospital Center, formerly Arlington Hospital. Injured were just arriving on the scene. Innova Alexandria also is accepting injured. They have 5 people there. Their injuries are considered minor. Again, D.C. schools are open, but if parents would like to come and get their children, they will be allowed to go home with their parents. But again, the school buildings, the kids will be kept inside. That's the same in Arlington. Mike, is that the case?
Yes, Arlington and D.C.
It probably is a safe place for them to be, and to have more people out on the street clogging the roadways won't help the situation at all. So try and be patient. I know how anxious the parents are at this time.
The picture on your left is the Pentagon, where apparently a commercial jet was hijacked. The hijacker, then in a suicide mission, plowed into the Pentagon.
We want to let you know that the breakfast bar, now the lunch bar at the bottom of our screen, is keeping you updated on the most immediate information that we know affecting area airports, affecting area school systems, affecting area roadways in the metro area. And of course, we will remain on the air.
Look, take a look. Can we, George, show them the picture from New York, would you? The World Trade Center up in New York. Look at that's the new New York City skyline.
It's New York City skyline. Mayor Giuliani has called this a horrific mass murder.
The Twin Towers. The Twin Towers are gone. We're going to show you the collapse. Here's a reporter getting ready to do a stand-up when one of the Twin Towers absolutely collapsed. It was just a short time later that the second tower went down.
And when both towers crashed, Mayor Giuliani says a horrendous number of lives may have been lost in today's attack on the World Trade Center. I have a sense, again, right now we have to focus on saving as many lives as possible. That's from New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani. Who are we going to now?
Let's go to Bruce LeShan.
Mike and Andrea, I'm in the basement of the St. Regis Hotel, and I'm remarkably calm down here compared to the quiet chaos up on the street. I had a couple of conversations just a short time ago with some uniformed Secret Service officers, one a lieutenant, and both of them mentioned seeing or hearing about a low-flying plane that was unidentified in the vicinity of the White House. Now, I think that threat has passed, but the perimeter has been expanded substantially, the security perimeter around the White House, and they've been pushing people back, and reporters and photographers and people who work at the White House, many of them running from the scene, concerned about this report of a plane. And again, I think that threat has passed, but the perimeter is now probably 4 blocks away from the White House in any given direction. Thousands and thousands of people up on the street level who are trying to get home in any way they can, trying to explain the situation to their loved ones. There is a lot of panic, people not wanting to get on any kind of public transportation, not wanting to get on the metro. Just being down here in the basement of the St. Regis, I've heard a lot of concerned conversations with family members. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to get on a bus. I'm not going to get on the metro. I'm just too darn scared. Long, long lines at all the parking garages, people unable to get their cars out just because of the sheer volume. Most of the businesses in this area have been closed down and evacuated. Even stores like the Starbucks and the little delis are shutting down because they're concerned about the situation. But as far as we know at this point, no true incidents here, all simply precaution. Buck, Andrea, back to you.
All right, thank you very much.
We can understand people's fear in getting on buses or metro, especially something underground. But Metro says they are on heightened alert, but they have not received any threats at all. Metro is still